hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are here today on the show. Lights are on, lights are off. We're getting right down to the nitty gritty. We can't play around when we have potentially the baddest son of a bitch to ever drive. No, I'm just playing. We ain't gonna do that. But we do have on the line here today somebody. We always have good conversations. It's almost like me and this guy have like Donnie shot scenarios where we just say what it is and we come across, not mean, but telling it like it is type person. I put Donnie Shots and this guy in the same kind of category, and that is Tim McCreadie. Tim McCreadie, you are here today. You are on the other line, are you not?
Oh yeah. Thanks for having me back. It's been a little bit.
It has been a little bit. And you've been, man, Rocket 1 year. That was pretty crazy. I mean, we were just talking about some other stuff. You apparently are going to some tournament or something. What is this thing again? Let the people know what's happening in Tim McCreadie's life right now. I mean, it's actually halfway interesting.
I have nothing really. It's family, right? A lot of stuff with our daughter and my son, my daughter, me and my wife. We do a lot of things, whatever they kind of want to do. And our daughter's gotten into cheerleading, where she's really good at the tumbling part of it. And after the high school, well, she's in obviously below high school. She's only 8. So after that season was over with, we put her on an AAU team, and we thought we had to go to Erie, Pennsylvania this weekend. That didn't turn out to be the case. Scheduling, I guess, was a little messed up. And then you turn around and obviously we're supposed to leave Sunday to head to Golden Isle to get racing on top of that. So now we've diverted for a couple of days to an indoor water park in New York, so we can have a little bit of fun. It's this racing's fun, man. It's everything I love to do, but also there's times when
takes your life.
The family doesn't get to. My family doesn't always get to do all the cool stuff. They have to, they're in school, and my wife does things on the side to help get by and take care of everybody, and it's not easy. So if I can get a chance to do something fun before we take off, we'll do it, and hopefully that leads to a positive outlook on the start of the year.
Family-wise, do you always feel like you're in payback mode because of the lifestyle? I mean, seriously. I mean, I would assume.
Some days. We also know that a lot of what I do is a reason why we're able to have what we have, and I think they all know that this doesn't last forever, and you got to try to make as much hay as you can when the sun's shining, like they say. So.
Right.
That's what we do. It's something that I've known my whole life. My wife Karen, obviously, she was around a little bit around racing, but not so much, and she's grown into understand it. And the kids, they love it. I mean, that when they don't go, they're watching on all the streaming. I mean, it's a unique time to be a race car driver / fan / anything to do with racing. The outpour and the ability to reach people is. I don't think I'd ever thought that it would get to where it's at, and here we are. So enjoy it, because it's who knows if it'll ever be like it is right now. It's a good time to be around.
Yeah, it's definitely in that 80s. It feels like it's in that 80s, 90s NASCAR era, almost that, right on the cusp of becoming something special. Obviously, it's going to be a different path. The world's different now. We're thinking, 20 years ago, dirt late model racing. Well, if you took NASCAR 20 years back in the 80s, you're talking about trying to get on the radio, or, Daytona 500's first ever nationally televised broadcast, So it's like, it's a process, and you've got to see a lot of the transitions of the sport. And then, of course, growing up in it, and I'm sure having plenty of stories from previous just lineages. It has to be pretty crazy how fast it's actually gone. I would say post-COVID era, especially when it came to the streaming on how much that's affected the sport and where it's got.
Yeah, I don't know if it was sometimes just like you say about NASCAR in the 80s, and obviously I was young, but I was most of the people my age, I feel like were big on open wheel cars, Indy cars, super modifieds, obviously non-wing midgets and things of that nature and sprints. That was what was getting a little bit of play on the ESPN and some of the other channels. So I didn't really see a ton of NASCAR, and sometimes it just takes. I mean, I'm sure they could trace it back to, hey, the fight or whatever happened on national TV, things of that nature. But it takes one little thing, and this COVID kind of, I don't know if people had so much time on their hands that they branched out way further in the racing world than maybe they ever had before and saw some new stuff, or if it was just the fact that you give people that were streaming a lot of credit. They put these races on, and sometimes with no fans in the stands, and gave us a chance to show out who we really were. There wasn't enough to divert your attention away, and we were doing live shows and things of that nature, and lo and behold, it's definitely boosted us up. Like I said earlier, the rise between everything that's gone up since COVID when it comes to, if you just look at purses, point funds, all of that stuff.
Attention.
The attention has made it all kind of ratcheted up, and it's a unique time to be doing this, and I'm thankful for it. I raced a lot of times where I thought I was making some good money, and the purses were good back then, and to see where we're at today, I don't think anybody could have seen that coming. So, hats off to everybody that's, I'm a small cog in it, but hats off to everybody that's been pushing along and pushing the rock up the hill.
Well, and it's one of those deals where it's skyrocketed for multiple reasons. Like we can all guess. We don't really know. We're thinking. We're just seeing. I mean, I think social platforms helped out a lot. And not only that, but younger people being more adapt to finding their. When we were growing up, or when I was growing up, I'm obviously a little younger than you. But when I was growing up, the TV controlled what people saw, and if you didn't see it on a television, you really didn't see it. The internet came early 2000s, then you might see it a little bit. But now with the cell phones and the social medias and the younger people being more adapt to viewing their media on their phone, and us in dirt racing with all the teams, with all the streaming, I mean, Flow's putting out clips, Dirt Vision's putting out clips, TikToks, all these things. It's just, it's kind of opened up what reaches people in a way.
Yeah, and I think also, and everybody knows this, I mean, this is nothing, no brain surgery. Everybody's got a phone. So when you're flipping around on your own phone, you're tailoring things to what you want to see. You're not in a big group where if you're sitting at the TV and you have a family, a big family, everybody's kind of watching the same thing, and maybe you don't even enjoy it. Now you get to point yourself in whichever direction you want to go via your phone or the computer or whatever else you have, tablets. So I think with all these clips, you can reach people more one-on-one than probably you ever could. A lot of it was more, in your head. You're like, man, I saw that guy on TV. I'd be cool if I could get close to him. And then you never get close to whatever it is, a sports guy, race car driver, actor, whatever. And next thing you know, now there's just seems like, I don't know if it's true or not, but it seems like you get a little more personal because you are getting clips and you're deciding whether you like them, and then you can respond. And if people go back and forth, all that being said, I'm probably one of the worst at doing that, which is kind of why I'm starting to do a little more of this. We're going to try to change some of that because it's like anything in life, man. If you don't get with the times, they go right on by you. So, if it makes more of my fans happy to see a little more content out of me personally and things of that nature, we're going to do a lot more of that and see where it takes us.
Well, and it's definitely, what sells now. I think you come from an era, and I respect an era and appreciate an era where you didn't have to do talking on the camera to talk, to make a statement, to get respect, to be a somebody, to sell yourself. You didn't have to sell yourself verbally or on a camera. You just got in that damn race car. You won the races, and that's what sold you. It does seem now that some of these guys are almost salesmen of their team and who they are and their value. It isn't always falling back on winning on the racetrack is what sells anymore. Sometimes.
No. I mean, and that's like, it's almost kind of to be expected when you're going to have the
Unless it's
ability to reach.
undeniable. Let's just say that, like Jonathan Davenport.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I
I
ain't
mean,
seen
you're gonna
JD.
reach.
I ain't seen JD on cameras much. Talking to fans. There is some. If you go out there and you wax and you dominate, then you may be able to get away with that. But outside of that, it seems like everybody's just trying to sell themselves outside of the racetrack.
Well, and I mean, I can understand that. I mean, it depends on, like, a lot of things drive our sport, and it's no secret. Obviously, merchandise and things of that nature will drive a person like myself, a driver's income into a different era. I mean, it's no secret that the retirement on somebody in my division, yeah, the money comes in good, but it's never enough to probably get over the top. Well, I mean, I say probably. I know it's never enough to get over the top of a lot of traveling costs, things that to be able to put so much away that the day I decide to hang them up, I just get to vacation all over the place and never even think about what I'm going to do in life. I have to kind of juggle this, and you can look at the other drivers. There's not many drivers that are doing this right now that don't have other means to be able to continue on after this is over with. I'm one of the few. This is when I decided to do this. I decided to do this when I was 23, and I'd been working and took a shot, and right or wrong, this is all I've been able to do this a long time, man, and had a great run and a lot of fun. The fallback plan is if I could have made it down south and had that big check, that would have been awesome. I didn't make that. So now what do you do as you go on in life? So if you drive sales, or you can get product sponsors, or just anything that can help the team. And I think we've all learned that, man, putting some media out there is the way to do it. Like it or lump it, man. It's the way it is. There was, like, when I grew up, it wasn't about that. It was about making connections and going out and showing out. And really, you couldn't get owners or people to really talk to you that much until you started winning races. So, but also I see both sides of it. There's people that are getting discovered now that maybe you'd never even know nothing about them if it wasn't for the media and the clips and everything else you can put out. So it's just a curve. I mean, racing's like any sport, man. Nothing stays the same. The best continue on and they adapt. I feel like just like driving these cars, they've changed since I've been in a late model, super late model in the early 2000s. They've changed twice, I think, majorly the way they drive. And the guys that can adapt keep going, and the ones that don't want to adapt or don't have an open mind, kind of, they kind of just go on and do something else. And I still love doing it, and I feel like I have an open mind, man, when it comes to try to make this car better. It's not just the car every time. You got to do different things that make you uncomfortable, comparable to maybe 5 or 10 years ago. So nothing stays the same, man. So adapt and carry on.
Well, it seems like late model racing is changing extremely over the last few years, especially in the technology department. I didn't know if I guess this conversation, I don't have no bullet points here, but as far as technology, it seems like I think two things really has happened, but they're kind of part of the same thing. I want to say that NASCAR kind of happened, when they went to that new car, it kind of left some of the greatest minds that made the traditional NASCAR vehicles go without a place to go, because that car removed a lot of a lot of guesswork out of the scenario, and teams. It saved everyone money because they, let go of half their employees in NASCAR land. I believe, was it at the front end guy at Hendrick or whatever is at Longhorn now, who won all those races with Jimmy Johnson in his heyday and everything like that. So it's like there's more minds who know how to make cars go in circles that had nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And they either went to the asphalt
is,
world or the dirt track world, and the dirt track world has numbers,
Yeah, and then that's kind of how the only thing that we lack, and honestly, when I say we lack, it's starting to get to a maybe not so good point where there is some major players in our sport they're definitely funded. Probably it's not that nobody wants to lose money. Let's just say that no owner wants to just throw good money away after bad. But there are some owners in our sport right now that have come in the last half of a decade that can obviously afford to take a hit, and it's pushed the envelope on every team. It was 5 years ago, 2 guys and a driver was more than enough to be able to do this. And I still think it is, but the issue you run into is if the guy beside you has got 5, they get their work done quicker. Now they're working on the stuff that could really make you fast, whether it's some shock technology. And I said it the other day, sooner or later, you got to maybe find somebody that's way smarter than whoever you think your smartest guy is, because that's what it has started to turn into. When a lot of guys get pushed out of Cup or whatever division that's way up with a lot of money, if they can make good money in our division, or they're just bored enough, they find what got them there in the first place. Most guys that ascend to the top of any sport, they love it. They wake up every day and they're like, man, I would like to, if I had a torch, I could cut this thing apart every day and make it faster. And that's fun for me. And it's the racing, the winning's the greatest part, and how you get there is part of it. Well, as these guys get, like you said, they make these cars down south, and all those guys that were doing all that, well, they don't really have a place to thrive like they used to, and they still love to do it. A lot of them have ended up over by us, and I don't know if it's good or bad, because now you get a few guys that are really sharp. Not that we're all dumb, because we're not, but like when you get teams that can afford to bring guys in that have really, really sharp minds and more of them, it just makes it harder. But that's, like I said, that's every sport, and that's the way it's always been. It just is getting a little more, partly because I think our division is still open enough that people get really excited about working on these cars and changing them around and trying to make unique setups and things like that go faster.
Well, and then like even if you have those minds, like you're saying, who's going to sustain paying them what they want? And you're saying, I guess the collaborative kind of crossways, the crossing path there is a few guys who can just afford whatever it takes, kind of to pay for that. And then at the same time, the chassis war deal is there. Like I said, somebody very high profile going to Longhorn to make their stuff better. They're profiteering in that, not just winning on the track, but with the product, with the chassis.
Yeah, it's tough, because we'd like to all believe that we're as big as NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula One. I mean, we're not. I mean, as far as, I think we have talent. It's not that. It's just the way it went. It didn't. People weren't into the dirt racing, whether it was because it was dirty or whatever it was.
Right.
We have a division that I've always said, like, I've driven in many divisions, and this is the hardest division. I know that said this before, and people get a little anal, and it's not just because I think it is. It's because it's just based off of facts, man. You bring some of the best guys that ever driven cars, and they come in here, including myself. I come off a 20-plus win season in a dirt modified, and really was probably the fastest car in the modified division at the time. And it took me a year to win my first late model race. And I shouldn't say that. It took me a year to win my first outlaw race, but it took me several races to win the first one, and then a full year to win an outlaw show. And that was, I think, the talent today is every bit as tough as that. And so what happens is that there's more cars than any of the other divisions. Plus we also have, like I said, teams that can afford a lot more help, and there's just a lot of right now it's just such a good upswing, I think, to be in our division, that a lot of people want to do it, and makes it really hard. And that's not a knock on other divisions. I've seen them, but some of just the way their cars are designed and where their rules are, they just, putting the cars together, taking them apart is just way faster and way easier than some of the things we do. And I just know that, like, I've done most of them, and this deal's really hard.
I feel like you're 100% correct when it comes to, and I say this all the time. I mean, I'm a sprint car guy, wing sprint car quarter mile. That's like the best visual thing you could see, in my opinion.
Yeah, I didn't say we were the best racing.
Right. Well, no. I'm not. I think you're talking about competition wise. I think you're talking about how, and I say this all the time, the amount of cars there are that are equal as far as funding, which there's a lot. You go to the World 100 and there's 120 cars. Most of those guys have the funding, whether they got the right stuff. They got the funding like a national team. And then the competitors. I mean, they're the best of the best. They come from the best of the best every which way direction. The one issue I see though with the car, and I just think it's inherited, and this is only through my little driving experience and also my visual experience and being around and all that. When like a big block or a sprint car with that solid rear axle, I feel like when that is a part of your vehicle, that right foot controls it. And once you go to this four link stuff, I feel like the driver gets removed way more than, the right torsion bar setup on your modified or the right spring combo on a modified or a sprint car. I feel like when you get into these, the suspension on the late model, it's extremely hard to drive them still, but I think it's extremely hard for the driver to make a difference behind the wheel at the elite level.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think I almost think so. I've been doing this since 2002. I think was when I first started playing around. Those cars, and even though they were on four link, they just were way harder to drive. They were.
When you say those cars, what do you
hard,
mean when you say those cars?
Like a super late model. I first started driving super late models. I don't mean they're harder to drive. The way they were set up and the way they were designed, they were just out of the racetrack lot and not hooked up from the beginning of the corner to the center. So as we've gotten them better, I think we've all learned, man, right rear stick is the most important thing out there. And we can talk about steering and I need to cut better and I can do all that. But if you don't have a right rear that sticks, the rest of it's a moot point. So as we've made these cars better, they're just so stuck on entry that you can load this right side and just drive them all the way in as far as you decide to go on. And that has made them a little better for guys that were coming up that were younger. Like when I first jumped in these things, I never thought I'd even be able to get the hang of it because I was just like, man, I don't get it. I feel like I'm being smooth. I feel like I'm doing all this stuff. And here goes Billy Moyer or whoever, Steve Francis just blazing right on by me and driving off into the sunset. And my move was to go harder and that made it worse. So as these cars have evolved, it's kind of turned around and gotten the other way. So how do you fix it? Heck, I don't know. Because the problem we got is like anything, the downforce on these cars are made the way they are, and they've been made forever. We just finally learned what to really do with them and how to really make them shine. And you can't just take nose pieces off. I mean, most of the stuff you're talking about, all that open wheel stuff, has a lot of the same in common. Very little front downforce and a lot of rear downforce on big blocks, obviously, is what I'm probably referring to most there. And why they always used to put a good show on, I think, in my opinion, was the fact that it was hard to get them balanced out really good. So the driver did matter. And, yeah, late model, I mean, you could plop a lot of guys in a lot of guys' cars, and we can all get within a half of a tenth of each other. So it does make it a lot harder to show out or start mid-pack and things like that. But, I mean, some of it's track prep tire. You can go on forever to figure out what you.
Well,
what you
I just think in late model racing, when I am watching a national late model race, when I'm looking at first to 10th at a big event, the only difference between those positions most of the time is the vehicle setup more so than the driver behind the wheel.
Well, yeah. I mean, anytime you can start doing things like if you just look at the sheer, like you're saying about a torsion bar. I mean, we know a lot about torsion bars over the years. There's not a lot you can really do to them. They're a piece of metal that's machined down, but obviously you twist it till you get what you want. We're turning around and putting, 3 springs together, and so we got 3 deflection points, and we're trying not to make these things go vertical. And then we turn around, we start making these bump stops on our own, and we have so many, and we're kind of about 5 to maybe even 10 years behind where the pavement late models are, for good and bad. And they've already experienced it. You can talk to whoever you want to talk to in the pavement world, and they'll tell you that they lived that stuff a decade or more ago. And I don't know how you fix it. Our rules are wide open where we're allowed to do all that. And right now, if you start, I know this, adding more rules has never helped any organization. It usually makes it even more expensive. And then we got to hire people that are even smarter than the smarter ones we got down here. So it's one of those deals, man. The good thing is you still see guys winning, in my opinion, that I don't think are the most funded people, or even maybe by far the smartest. A lot of them are old school. You look at Bobby Pearson. I'm not knocking their program. They got the best race car, best driver, everything going for them right now. they're doing it in their own shop. They're not doing it with Chevrolet funding and Toyota funding or whatever. And every single crew chief and crew guy, they've done a lot of it by basically, grinding away. 5 years ago, Bobby was kind of struggling a lot of them races, and what they've done is put their head down and look at them now. So I mean, that makes me think, hey, that's a good thing. It's a good thing that they're not outspending every single guy to beat us. So you got to have a little bit of everything, and hopefully, as things evolve in the next few years, the driver will maybe get a little more back into it.
Well, and I think that, things are very even, it seems like. First through 10th can be very close. It does feel like, though, there's like a top 1%, or 10th of a 1% that they just have a little, I don't want to say secret, but something that they found that hits. How hard is it to find that little bitty advantage? I thought that, I was playing on top about the Ricky Thornton Jr. deal because that had to be a shock to you to see somebody at that level of dominance, move on from a car or get let go in one way or another. As you're describing, technically, you've been a professional race car driver. You haven't had a business to fall back on. That's what your career has been. This is your job.
I came from basically working a regular job and decided to do this. My dad did the same thing. My dad was a high school dropout, got his GED, and worked at a bus garage and worked at things like that, and decided to take a chance at racing, and everything that he had that he earned himself and was paid for. And did I have a good start at it? Of course. I mean, there was a frame there and some parts, but also I went and had to get a real job and start earning my own money to be able to take this thing places, and a lot of help. So I just don't have I chose to do this. I could have stayed at the helicopter plant and maybe retired by now. So I'd never change my life for anything. But it's how guys like that deal with Ricky where he got fired is
that had to be crazy to view as a professional driver because your job is winning,
because
right?
obviously, a lot of this stuff. I mean, I moved. I very rarely like to change things up myself when it comes to the teams. So usually I lock in with a team and we stay together for a long time. So, I mean, I moved over and tried something different. And obviously their deal, it's obviously the problem, all that sounds great, obviously, to people on the internet and what's going on. And, I can't wait to get this thing going and see what kind of hot stove or rumor mill. And the problem is that I'll just be dead honest with you. We don't make enough money for all these moves to keep happening to drivers. And the owners don't, they spend a lot of money. Like, we need stability. This isn't Cup where we have guaranteed contracts and things of that nature where if you get let go tomorrow, it's no big deal because you got 6, 7, high 6 figures or 7 figures coming no matter whether you race or not. So it's a bit of a life shocker when things like this happen at our level. I know the sprints have kind of been able to do it longer and more, but usually our division's pretty status quo. So hopefully we get back to more of that. I know it's not exciting for fans to see what might happen, who gets fired, but or quits rides or moves on. But that's I don't think what any of us want in our division.
Right. Well, I was going to bring up in that subject was, Ricky really took a step back for a minute. Even though he did win the championship, he took a step back. And in my research a little bit, Ricky's kind of always been a driver. He's probably the closest thing to you that there's been in a long time. Somebody who's came up, raced their way from a flatbed and a modified, a little bit different than you, I guess, but flatbed and a modified into the super ranks, and he literally won his way from the bottom to the top. I call him the Kyle Larson of the fendered world just because of that, because he did come from nothing legitimately. And I've always known him to be a real smart guy with the car. And I would have assumed, being in there with that SSI scenario, that he would have learned everything he needed to do, that when that switch happened, he would have been right, at least close to right back there. But after that happened, after the slow kind of restart there with the Kohler situation, I started asking around, and basically it came down to there are just a handful of guys that really know what to do with these late model cars. And if you're one of those 5 guys or 4 guys, I didn't really get a number, there is just that little small oomph that with that race car they can do something with it, and I find that really hard to do. It has to be extremely hard in a world where you got your shop guys selling packages and all this stuff, and your factory team information. It's got to be almost impossible to find that oomph that these few guys have.
Well, I mean, it's definitely not easy, and some of it is it's a lot of little things. Like I see it, like because I've been around it, I see it in every division. If you look at the modified, there's Bicknell manufacturing. Obviously, Bicknell race cars are manufacturing 85% or more of the community, and for the longest time it was Troy or Tio. And as what I notice is a lot of that is some of them guys that built them companies, they just unfortunately have either maybe passed away or moved on and sold the companies off. And it's not that younger people don't have a lot of smarts or ideas. It's just right now, man, it's hard. Back in the older days, or even you had to build a lot of stuff because a lot of the stuff you bought might break. So you'd take it apart and you'd learn to build it. And it's just a different way. And I don't think it's no secret that like when Kyle Larson, guys like that have come along, they focused on driving and that's all they focused on. And because I've heard Kyle say and been around him a little bit where he said, okay, look at, that didn't feel much different, but I need to work on this with my feet and I need to do this. And I kind of thought the other way. I've always thought, okay, I know what I'm doing here and I know what I'm looking for. I need to work on this car some more because I can't get it to do what I want it to do. And that's just based off of how you grew up racing. And I'm sure, I know Ricky knew what was going on, but also you got to understand that he was doing a lot of racing and running when you started running different divisions, because I did it. I mean, I was running modifieds on Thursday, flying to getting a late model on Friday, Saturday, and flying back on Sunday and doing all this stuff. A lot of things get lost in translation when it comes to what you're doing on these cars, unless you're physically doing all the work yourself, which is pretty much impossible, I think, nowadays to do all that. So to get back at like why they find their little juice, I think a lot of it is just, I think sometimes it just takes a little bit of a blend. I think Bobby Pierce has a blend, a new age driver, young guy who really, when you talk to him, does know a lot about cars. But for the beginning of his career, it was drive and his dad was tinkering and his dad was doing things. And if you've seen Josh Richards, that's kind of how it started. And a lot of them guys that did that were very successful. And the ones I think that transitioned into being more like how I did it, which was work on the car, always talk to the manufacturers, trying to figure out if you need to change the split band in a piston or put different bleed shim in the right front or whatever you want to do. If you can melt that together, you get it all, like a Matt Shepard in the big block modifieds. I mean, this guy has been able to do both. Engineer cars because he's an engineer, got a degree, race cars, turn into a first-class driver, and then you have a little bit of everything because sometimes you need to be able to do this stuff away from everybody to get your last little bit of, I think, juice. And it's not always easy if you're going to have to supplement other race teams. Like when we were the house car team, a lot of that stuff, it wasn't all done by me, but a lot of the information came through me to whoever, or JD to me to, so sometimes that's not always positive. It is when you're struggling, but when you're winning, you just don't usually venture out to continue to get better because you're trying to keep winning.
How transparent is it when you're in these camps, for instance, like you with JD for years there with Longhorn? Is it everybody knows exactly what everybody's doing?
I can't comment on other guys. Every team that I've ever run or that I've been a part of, I shouldn't say I run because I've never been maybe the complete boss of everything, but every team that I've been a part of, we've been open, maybe to a fault. When I started off racing, the fortunate part of being who I was with my dad was the fact that Alan Johnson could stroll right into my pit area. Guys won 500, 600 races, or Jack Johnson or Billy Decker or whoever that you say you were starting without that name, probably them guys wouldn't really even talk to you, not because they were better than you. They just didn't even know that you existed because of who you are. So I had a lot of people that always would, I could just ask them questions. Hey, what do you do here on a restart? Or what do you do this? Or what's going on here? And how do I even shift this thing into high gear? It's things that that are like nerve-wracking to go through when you're first starting out. And I just kind of always carried that. I mean, I had a lot of people help me, and I just have a hard time looking somebody in the eye and trying to not be honest with them. Now, I can't comment on other people. I feel like I know JD is one that I know has always shared stuff with me, and we've always had a great relationship. I don't know why. I mean, he might be able to tell you why. We get along really well, and it transitioned into setup stuff over the years. And, you know, I've always told him if he ever needed me for help, I'm there, and he's told me the same thing. And I can say that about a few other guys. I think most of us try to help. Even the younger guys, they're not. It's just nowadays you just don't see the camaraderie as much, just because it's a busy sport. It's getting up early, working through the day, when it used to be you waste some time maybe fooling around at the beach or going to the go-kart track in the morning just for fun and things like that. It's hard to do that anymore. We have a lot of work and a lot of things happening all the time. So it's just, I think people
Well,
are
and it's very close
honest
now. It's very close now. So if you can find something that's going to keep you in a ride,
well,
I mean,
that's what's crazy. So like I sit here and I tell you how it's hard and everything else, and then you say to me, well, damn, Bobby Pierce won 40 some odd races or 50 races. And I say, yeah, it sounds like that can't even possibly be true, that it's hard when the same guy wins all the time. It's because it's that little bit, and that's what's hard. Him and Ricky obviously were the two fastest cars the majority of the season. We're chasing a 10th, and the crazy thing is we think we have an idea of what everybody's doing. So it could be, there's things, man, I don't even know where you want to go. I mean, there was years that we were fooling around with axle diameters and cambered rear ends, and what happens is some of that stuff goes away and then it comes back, and if somebody's just open-minded and can find it, it's magic. And once you get it, because, I mean, I had it in 2017. We didn't win the title, but I thought we were the best car in the Lucas Tour and won 2 or 3 50,000s. And it didn't matter where we started. I could start 16th and drive right up through there. I could start time on the pole and win. And we had a stretch 3 or 4 times in the last 5, 6, 7 years where the car just was a little bit better than everybody else's. And that's when the magic happens, you know. With me being the Longhorn guy, it probably faded quicker, partly because it wouldn't be nothing to have a bunch of people come over, and I was probably too honest. But what was I supposed to do? You're working for a company in the Labanis and now Steve Artman. That's what the house car does. The house car figures it out so the customer can be faster off the rip, and that's the same thing Rocket One does. It's made to, they want to win, of course, but they also have to tip the scale both ways, where like a Pierce or Ricky Thornton's team, or even the team, you know, Boom Briggs and Briggs Transportation I drive for now, I don't have to do as much of that. I'm not saying I will or won't, but like I can venture off in some crazy corners now and maybe find something that works for me that can give me an advantage. Because Bobby Pierce, it's just simple. He didn't just get better 2 years ago and win 38 races. He figured his little juice. Bill Sleeper from Pro Bar used to always say, it's that little juice that you get at the end of the deal, and he's got it right now. And same thing with Ricky with the SSI team. They had that little bit of whatever it was, and it took Ricky, I mean, he was fast, but it took him 3 years to get to where he was consistently winning in these cars. So, I mean, it's just a matter of trying to figure out what to do to make you better, and don't quit and don't get complacent, because once you do, somebody else comes along and puts you back down, you know.
is it more important to keep that little juice that you find secretive in today's racing scene just because?
I wouldn't know, just because I've never really been able to withhold things from people. It's not that everybody uses me for information either. I'm not here to say any of that baloney. I'm just saying that I just never have really, there's really nothing personally that I thought, yes, this thing is such magic that I can't even think about saying a word about it. I really thought a lot of the stuff that we've done to be really quick, and I don't know if it's just because some of the setup stuff is just, I've seen it my whole life, been around it. I almost feel like it's kind of, some of it's really not too hard to figure out and simple. And sometimes I think people overlook a lot of the simple things. It's not, like, I know that people are going to call you or talk to whoever and say, man, I'm telling you, the reason that guy's winning is because he's got this deal that it's XYZ minus 10,000 points of this or whatever rubbish, and that's the only reason he wins. And it's like he literally could be running 10 less points a year everywhere he goes, and that might be the trick.
Right.
And it's sometimes it's not as crazy as you think it is. Sometimes it's just 5 little common sense things, and so I'd never really thought it was a big deal to talk about it. Because
that's probably your confidence
time,
as a driver too. You probably
well,
feel like
I've always said that I'd love to just have IROC cars because at the end of the day, I feel like I'd get mine. I feel like if we were in equal race cars, I'm going to get a bunch of my money and my good times and happy with that. That's why you go do things that like challenge you. Like the Chili Bowl was more of a, back when I first started going, I thought was kind of, yeah, the cars maybe weren't equal money wise, but you could make up for them as a driver. And you used to see that a lot at that place where guys could start in the back and pass all these cars. And it's still that way now. And unfortunately, even with that division, the equipment's just gotten more equal and more of it, which makes it harder.
Right. Prime equal. I think that's as well funding, I do think in today's world, there's more teams that are well funded than ever before. I think that makes a big difference too. I mean, if you could at least have the newest thing off the block ish, not 100%, but when you got 60 teams that have the best of the best coming from a Penske or a Bellstown. I mean, I'm just saying the majors. That's going to make everything a lot closer. And if you're a little underfunded and you ain't got one of these XYZ distributors, you're behind the 8 ball way more than when there was only about 10 guys with the best of the best.
Yeah, I agree. I think in any of the major, like if you consider our division and then the wing sprints, the top 2 dirt divisions that are going right now, you could probably, if you got the money, you can buy speed. You can get everything you think that's going to get you to where, okay, what's the last piece of the puzzle? Okay, I got to have a driver that can get the speed out of this car, and then yes, you still have to be able to adjust on it. You can't just roll out there with 10 inches of stagger in a sprint car and set the pole and then just run that the rest of the night and never even think about bleeders or anything else that goes onto these cars. But that being said, that's what makes it harder to get. You're like a guy like me who maybe didn't always qualify good at nights because we were working on feature packages mostly. All of a sudden that starting 8th and winning turned into 12th and then turned into 15th and then turned into I needed 100 laps to get there, because now that if there's 50 cars, when we go racing next weekend, if there's 45 cars, there's 40 of them that are the car and the motor are every bit as good as everybody else's, because I can get a Clements engine, a rocket chassis, and turn around and buy brand new wheels and everything and then be just as fast as far as sitting on that jack stand as the guy parked right beside me. So it does make it harder, but also it makes it, makes you hungry and makes you more excited to do it. And it's very rewarding when you run good.
Yeah, it is. I would assume, going up against the mountains that it takes to get to where it is now, to be up front. What do you think adds all this up? Is it when you're talking about crew chiefs or advantages or tinkering and all that? Is it, in today's world, you would think that a guy with the experience of what to do to the car would trump just about everything, but now we're in the age with telemetry and other things that can assist the learning curve of just general experience, it seems.
Yeah, I think telemetry and obviously the spring smashers, shock dynos, all those things we never had, forced us to work on different parts of the car, and that's what you did. And you just trusted that your shock guy who built everything, that it was good. And, if you opened it up 5 or 6 clicks on a shock, you really didn't even know how much it did. So now all we've done is refine everything that we thought we knew. It's just like anything in life. There's just things have gotten better and made better, and that's kind of how it is. Like now we all have these shock dynos, and now we're operating. We've learned how far our car travels most nights, and we operate. Our right front operates in a 1.5 inch travel window that 7 years ago was maybe 3 inches. So when it's 3 inches, you can mess up. When it's an inch, it's very meticulous. So then you got guys at home like a Kevin Rumbley or whoever that are just sitting there and looking at it and working on it and improving things that I'm not going to lie, they're above my pay grade. Now, if I concentrated only on that, I could be pretty good at it, I would think, but I'm still concentrating on which tire to put on and how much air pressure to run, and then turn around and figure out how I need to drive this thing in here deep, and where did that guy that just set the pole, what line was he in? So I'm trying to juggle a little bit of that. And that's where, obviously, if you have more people and obviously real sharp people, it just makes it, that's a little bit where our deal is tough. We have a lot of good people. There's just not as many as there could be based off of wages. It's hard to pay everybody what theirs worth. I go back to, like I said, I know everybody likes the craziness of things happening and moving around, but like when cup teams do it and there's only 30 some out of them, it's a little bit different than when there's 300 late models, and most of us, especially the crew guys, are making far less than what they deserve considering what you're asked to do. They do it really out of love. And then you do have some guys, obviously, that get to the higher end of it that make more money, but still, we're nowhere near on the level of getting paid like an IndyCar team or a cup team. So it's you end up maybe not having as many people to access to make these cars do what they do. I mean, it's a crazy, because then you turn around and I look and I say, who's that guy that just led all those laps the other day out at Vado? And he's from Oregon, and I looked him up. He's a good little racer, but I didn't know much about him. So it's not all doom and gloom. It's just, I think somebody like me, you get to doing it a certain way that it's hard to sometimes think. Well, it's just hard to sometimes think that spring smashing isn't as big deal. So I'm a little focused more on the X's and O's of these race cars, probably, maybe sometimes when I shouldn't even be worried about it. I mean, I've never been able to do that, but I've been amazed that some guys have no problem not really worrying how their car's set up, and they're successful doing it that way. It's just been odd to me, but it's like I said, it's different strokes for different folks.
Well, I mean, Larson was good at that. He eventually got ran out. You're just too strong in the late model world. No, I'm just playing. But
yeah.
hey, man, y'all started putting it on him. We ain't seen him since. But
well, that's okay.
That's just how tough late models are. I'm just saying that's how tough y'all are.
It is tough. I think, we've had a few of them, and I'll tell you this, like, I would have been interesting to see like Tyler Courtney run some more. I really like him, and I know that he did a really good job, but also I know that like he probably knew how much longer it would take and he needed to make money, and he made way more money driving that wing sprint car than he was gonna fooling around with us.
Right.
Because
Logan Seavey's been trying it, but.
Well, listen, I've done it. Like, this is what people don't realize. I wasn't born into late models. I was born into big block modifieds. Never even once thought about driving late models, and just happened to be hanging out with Vic Coffey, who turned out to be Sweeteners Plus and turned out to be one of my closest friends, who I drove for their family for 15 plus years. They had late models. I walked in the shop and I thought, oh, that'd be pretty cool. Let's go try this somewhere. And that's how my late model career started. I didn't know only Rick Eckert and Chubb Frank and a few of the crew people, and that was it. And so I know how hard it is, this division, because I did it. I lived through it, and I knew as other guys tried it, and they'd ask me, I said, look, here's the problem. You're going to have to eat crow. If you're not ready to run bad until you get to where you run good, it's not going to be for you. And, lo and behold, a lot of guys have tried it, and they could do it. Like I said, I have no doubt in my mind that a Tyler Courtney and Seavey, they can do it. It's just, how do you, like, when I did it, I was a young kid and didn't have a lot to weigh me down. So I was like, man, I'm going to take a financial hit, but I don't care. I want to go race against who I consider great drivers and see if I can win in a car I've never even seen before. And
right.
So, it's kind of like the world's a little different now. People get a little specialized. I know that's why it's a big deal. I think when like a Ricky Thornton starts doing some of the stuff he's done, is because nobody really does a lot of that anymore. I mean, I did it, and I still do it if people offer, but I mean, it's not a lot of people are bouncing around in different divisions anymore.
Right. Yeah.
It's not the same to jump in a micro and a midget. I know they're different, but they're not different, if that makes any sense. It's, like going to a late model to a silver crown car to a midget to a wing sprinter, like some of the guys I grew up watching, Tony Stewart and all of them do. Jeff Gordon, them guys that I always thought were pretty wild drivers, AJ Foyt, they jumped in many different cars, and that's what makes racing fun. Like I said, the last part of my career, heck, I love doing this late models, and I'll do it. But man, if somebody come rolling around and said, "Hey, you want to go to Daytona in a prototype or a Porsche car and ride around there," I'd be all for it, man. I love driving everything.
It's funny you bring up road racing and Porsche cars and all that. I actually had a guy, he wanted me to ask you about uh, active suspension. Apparently, it's like the next level above telemetry.
Yeah,
It's in road racing cars apparently to where you put these active suspensions on all four corners of. He was saying on the late model, you go out there and run 20 laps, and at the end of 20 laps, that active suspension had already it has an algorithm and kind of like a AI, like a brain of its own, and it sets the rates. And you could literally go test, run 20 laps, and that active suspension will set that car up as you're running. It's learning every lap to be 100% the best possible setup for that track in those conditions. Have you heard about this active suspension that is out there?
well, I mean, I've never heard of it in our division. No, I'm not here to say that it isn't. I mean,
Well,
anytime you
telemetry's
have,
not legal. It's all practice and
no,
testing and
telemetry,
stuff.
but you can. We take it we take it with us everywhere. That's why you'll see anybody you've seen that's gone to Golden Isle or anywhere down in the south the last month to get ready for Florida is taking their telemetry and trying to get an idea. The beauty of our division is the fact that the track will take a swing from maybe, and this is the one thing that I've tried to, and this isn't because I want to run better. It's because our division is really good because of the change of the car or the change of the track and the speed of the track. Telemetry is great when you roll out it because we've had it on Golden Isle. You roll out there 14. Like we've always been able to go to Golden Isle for winter testing and figure out if we're going to be pretty competitive right off the rip. Because no matter what they've configured this racetrack to be, anything in the 14-second bracket is fast, no matter if it's dry, wet, whatever. You start showing up in your 15.5s and 15.4s, you're like, man, I got some work to do. When you show up and race, though, and that track's 14.9, but it finishes at 17 flats or 16.8s, it's hard to ever get the telemetry to keep up because you can't get the change of the track to do that in a test just because there's not enough cars. You just can't do a lot of things. That's the beauty. So what I've tried to tell the promoters or just people that want to listen, and I sound like a cranky old man, but when you reprep a track right before the feature, all you do is bring this thing back to whoever was the best in hot laps and qualifying. You don't really make them guys have to do a lot of work like they did when I was first racing and keep up with your car. Because usually this is a no-brainer. Like you go out there and you set fast time. You don't do a lot for the heat. You might tinker a little bit, but you already know you got the gun right now. You got the best car. So as I'm sitting there 8th fastest, I'm working. I'm like, God, I need 3 shocks or whatever I'm doing to this thing. Well, there's a time where we either flip-flop or maybe if you don't, whatever happens. You see a lot of times over the years, guys start on the pole a lot, finish 10th. Well, now if you prep this track again right before the feature, damn, it makes it a lot easier for this guy that was already fast when the track was 16 flat to be fast again at 16 flat instead of it going through in transition. Well, then telemetry data, stuff like that is going to be even more important. And maybe I'm wrong, but it's just a feeling that I got is tracks that used to naturally transition was part of the game. And that's why we're different from pavement and things like that. Unfortunately, some of the people that get in the higher ups of our division that are controlling or just somehow have a lot of pull, I don't know if they've raced enough or they know if tracks or where they're at when they comment on, whatever message boards or, their videos. Some people don't understand a rubber track versus a slick track versus a track that has a 6-foot high cushion where you can't race anywhere else or the bottom's so tacky that you can't move. Those are tracks that need a little bit of work, but like most of the time, these guys were good at prepping their tracks for 30 years. They don't have to go crazy. And to get back to this adaptive suspension stuff, I mean, that was Formula One. I think Nigel Mansell back in the either early 90s, late 80s, they had their adaptive cars. And obviously road racing has less restrictions comparable to stuff like that. I don't know I don't know how it would work. I mean, it would make our division be, if people think there's haves and have-nots now, there'd be a few halves and everybody else would be a not. It'd
Well,
be too much money.
and how it was described to me is you could do it just like people test with telemetry. You could go to a track and you put this on your car, all four corners. You go out there, you run it. After 20 laps, it's on its own already made the adjustments to the correct rates that is needed for optimum drivability, speed, everything.
Yeah.
And you come in, it shows you the rates. You pull the rates. You set your normal package to the rates that it gives you, and bam! I mean, you do it for a tacky
Yeah, you
track, a
get
slick track, a rubber track, and now you have just like a shock dealer would sell. Here's your settings for the slick. Here's your settings for the dry. If it's here, it would do that, but just with a you don't even need to know. It's not telemetry where you're
Yeah.
reading what the car's doing. It's already made the adjustments for you when you pull in, and here it is.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, I'm more intrigued than I am saying that I don't want it. I mean, I'm liable to hang up the phone when we're done, and I'll start calling out in California and make my way back across the country to see who could help me put it on and see if it's worth doing, because that's the stuff that gets me exciting. I mean, I don't know what to think of it. I mean, it's just like anything. If you're gonna get to the top of the sport and your division is going to crawl up the top of the sport, you're going to have things that come through, and you got to make a decision whether they're good for the sport or not. Obviously, financial wise, there's no way that possibly could be good, because we're already
right.
With a tire increase that we had last year, which, I mean, everybody's harped on it. That put a lot of owners can stomach breaking engines and things that are just going because you're trying to be competitive. What owners have trouble with is a 30, 40, 50% increase on something that was the same for a long time. Whether it's fuel, tires, all of a sudden an engine bill, that pushes these guys kind of to the brink. So then you turn around on top of the dynos we got and the spring smashers that are thousands of dollars, and then if I don't know if we could survive it, but personally, I'd love to, if it's out there. Tim McCreadie, you can find my number. Give me a call. I'd like to see what I could do with it.
If something like that, you could literally put on your car test and it tell you what you need. Do you need spring smasher anymore? Do you need any of these other things?
No, listen. We worked with guys that we had that were really smart. In 2017, I had Dave Collin, a bunch of guys that were obviously my crew chief Phil. That was some NASCAR guys that could come to Longhorn. And when the Spring Smashers came out, I still have it on my laptop here, a program that they put together that basically didn't really need a Spring Smasher. You could just do it all with measurements and just like spring crush measurements and things like that. And that would give you all these numbers and put the curve on without having to do the manual labor of running it through the machine. We didn't do anything with it except use it ourselves, which was an advantage. I mean, it was an advantage to put things together. So there's always, listen, man, when you have smart people, when you get people that get engineering degrees and just degrees and whatever it is, that they're really good at what they do. Now they might not know how to apply it to the car in our division, but they know chassis dynamics and just the gist of what you're looking to do. And then it's up to somebody like me. Like, that's what I always hope that people have seen in me. I might not know how to exactly build this front end, but I can tweak it and twist it and do the things that usually gets the juice you're looking for. That's what I used to be good at. It's sometimes you gotta, like right now with our cars, I mean, even like with Boom and everything we're doing, we gotta walk a little bit before we can even get to the running part. So, that's what's hard to do. Like I said, when you see a lot of switching, that's what happened with Ricky. I thought he'd be good, and he didn't really fall off, but he didn't win like he was winning before. And that's a lot of that is because, man, you can't just pick your helmet up and walk 2 stalls down with different engines or different whatever and expect to just immediately be the same. You might have, what do they call it, a little bit of luck just because you're really good. But then when the reality sits in, I mean, they had to go to work, and they did. Like, they had to go do some testing and work at the end of the year to get to where they did win that title.
Right. Yeah, it's got to be tough for all these. We're talking about spring smashers and active suspension, telemetry. We had Jason Fager on here. I think it was last year, and he's kind of like a pinnacle of a regional,
Yeah,
star in a way who could show up at a
he's a
national
good dude.
race and do well. And he was saying that telemetry should be legal. He was saying that it's not illegal at private practice sessions, but for a local racer or a regional racer, they can't afford to rent out a track, to whereas if it was legal to run on your car, they could at least utilize it on race nights. So the traction control being illegal in his mind, or the telemetry, sorry, not traction control, that's probably being used too. But I'm just saying,
Yeah,
the telemetry,
could be.
is only kind of useful for teams or groups who can rent tracks out.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, see, that's why, like, when you're looking at things to do, you got to take everybody into account. You can't just say, okay, the 20 traveling teams on each tour, 10 and 10 or whatever, should set the gold standard for everybody else. Because what my problems are, obviously, like you're saying, he said the best, affording to rent the track. That's not an issue for me. If I want to go to a track, we go to a track. It's not even. I didn't even think it'd be a big deal. But now you hear somebody like Jason who's really good, and obviously he has his issues that he's got to fight to be competitive. So it opens your mind. We might disagree. I don't. I wish we didn't have to have it at all. But what are you going to do? It's in the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if having it would be better or worse. I don't know. I know that when you speak of like Kevin Rumbley, he'll tell you, and I've worked with other engineers, there is some low-hanging fruit when you go out and hot lap as the speed of the track is where it's at. And then you could get a car a lot quicker, a lot faster. But I don't know. I mean, like I said, I don't know if that's the answer or not. I mean, but also you take into account what I say, what Jason says, and somebody that's above both of us needs to make the right decision. And the kicker is that if the decision, the worst thing that I see in racing is from the higher ups, not so much the people that do it, because the people that do it have to survive. We have to change. If we suck, we just can't keep doing the same thing. So it forces us to realize, man, I really love that Rager Spring that won X amount of races 5 years ago, but guess what? That thing's in the garbage until it comes back around because it's no good. It forces it to do it. Competition forces us to do that. The higher ups, sometimes, most of the time, when they make that decision, sanctioning bodies, I'll tell you what, man, it's like they are concrete and they're in the ground. And I would be like, hey, you know what? If you think traction control will work, let us run it at a few of these $5,000 to win shows and see what happens. And if it's a shit show, okay, but if it's the best thing that ever happened to racing, then but we never seem to do a lot of that. Like we make a decision and that's it, if that makes any sense.
Right. What is some of the things that you see the higher ups maybe doing, or what do you think needs to be done with the sport to make it better a little bit?
Well, I think, like I said earlier, obviously without owners, we can't do this. And we'd all like to sit here and, I could tell you all day long that I'm a self-made race car driver, and I'm not. My dad helped me, and a lot of other people helped me throughout my career. I did own cars for a little while and realized pretty quickly that probably wasn't going to get me anywhere because it just was not. It was too hard to do financially for myself.
Use Ricky Thornton. He's the closest self-made driver, that we have recent example of.
So, yes, but without an owner, he's nobody.
Right.
And that's just the way
Well, that's my point.
Like,
so you're saying with the owners.
We have these great owners, right? And they are doing a lot, and they're doing it either because they love it or however they're doing it. A lot of them aren't doing it for basically, promotional gains to try to sell whatever product that their company might own. A lot of them aren't doing it that way. They're just pure love for the sport. Okay, so now we're pushing these guys, like I said earlier, where we have a 50% increase on a tire bill comparable to what it was 3 years ago. And then we turn around and telemetry, spring smashing, and we're pushing these guys. And the purses have gone up. And it's amazing what the purses have gone. The problem we're running into is for some reason the promoter has yet to learn that, yes, $75,000 to win is amazing, but it doesn't make enough teams healthy. And now I'm the guy that always said, I don't care what anything pays. I only care about what it wins. The problem I got is as I've listened to owners now for the last 25 years of my career, I've heard them start to say, man, this is getting tough. It's getting tough to only pay $3,000 for 10th on a $75,000 to win show, or $2,500 to start out of a $100,000 to win show. And I really think that they need to come up with a new way of advertising, because in my mind, a $300,000 purse sounds way more exciting than $75,000 to win. But we haven't gotten by that, and that's 1980 type stuff that used to print out in pamphlets to hand out to people. $75,000 to win, $75,000 to win. The prestige of the race can get there without it having to be 75. It could be 50, pay $6,000 for 10th, and figure the rest out. And you're gonna create a lot more healthy race teams, because like you and I were just talking about, like if you start pushing NASCAR people out and they start coming into our world where they need more money, you start spreading owners thin, and then when owners stop doing it, we're done. I mean, it's really that simple. So we need to listen to them a good bit. Like Jason Fager owns his own race team, so you like listen to a guy like that matters, because he's going to come and support X amount of races. Because we had 17, I think, travelers. Rick Schwally told me last year. That's not a full field, and the Outlaws had 15. It's not a full field, so we gotta make people healthy as much as possible. And it's, I think if you win the World 100 and you get paid $10,000 less, and then it doesn't matter, man. It's once you get up $40,000-$50,000, that's good money. You know what I mean? It's yeah. Obviously, if you win 100, it's great, but if you can spread it through, nobody's winning every race. I know Bobby won a lot of them, but I'm telling you, for every lean year that he has, we'll wipe away the one good year he had. 3 years goes away when you have a lean year. So it's better off to make us all healthy.
Well, and I think, like, for instance, like the sprint car world, with the split with high limit, I don't think personally there's as many late, because they used to say, oh, well, late model world has 2 series, but y'all kind of run 40 to 45 ish races a piece, whereas World of Outlaws is still running their 90 and high limits running 60. And on top of that, there's, I would say, probably at least 2 times the amount of full-time operable late model teams happening in the country at the same segment of saying that. But I think what you're talking about is owners getting a piece of the pie to where it's just not a loss all the time. And that is something that at least High Limits talked or trying to do, I think, here with this charter scenario that they're trying to do with High Limit, where teams are part of the series and they're getting cuts of streaming directly. It's not just about finishing position on a night or platinum tow money or anything like that. It's actual splitting of revenue that's coming in. Is that something that you even knew about, looked at? Is that something that could help these owners actually get, because they're a part of the show? Without like you said, without the owners, there's no show. Flow Racing and Dirt Vision, I mean, they're making money on the backs, technically, of these owners providing cars.
Yeah, I mean, until you sit down and see all the numbers, the charter system obviously is, I get worried about following anything that
NASCAR's
does.
done. That's true.
Well,
or franchisee would be a better term. You're a franchise owner.
It isn't a knock. It leads you. I think when you start doing things like charters, franchises, whatever you want to do, you start. If the trade-off is you're guaranteeing these guys into the race no matter what, and not adding to the field. Like a quick story of, when I first started racing, but even before, Glenn Donnelly, who ran Drivers Independent Racetracks, which is the original Dirt Motorsports, guaranteed the top 12 guys in every race, no matter what, that was traveling on the tour. But that got added to the field. So if they start in 24 and 10 guys didn't make it, they started 34 that night. And it didn't take anything away from the structure of guys making the race. It just let the guys that supported you continue to race no matter what, which obviously some people don't like that, but it kept the teams healthy and kept them running on the tour. If you have to go that route and take field starters away from other teams, I feel like that we're watching it with NASCAR. I mean, when I grew up, there was 43 cars that started the race. and now there's less. And why is there less? Is it because they've run off everybody, or what's going on that you can't get a full field? Like a full field they have now is, I don't consider a full field. And obviously it's their business plan maybe is the reason they're in that situation. So I don't know if we need to follow everything they do, but I mean, the way they were able to market themselves, that's what we need to look into more than anything than maybe the charter system. I think you could start by, like I said, getting the purses through the middle better and understanding that if you have X drivers, like Tony Stewart has done this at the Eldora. He did it for the world first, and then I think it was last year he redid all the purses for the Dream and took $27,000 off the top of the Dream, spread it through, and added a little bit. And we had more cars show up at the Dream last year. I think it's the first time we topped 100 cars at the Dream in maybe over a decade, and it was all because of what happened from the middle to the end of that purse. And because we took money off the top, it literally took 27 grand right off the top. And the funny thing is, and I know everybody will say, well, that's Eldora. I didn't hear anybody bitching about like losing. It didn't pay 127,000, so this guy's discredited the win this year. Right. All it said was, man, look at all the guys that showed up. So you just got to start thinking outside the box. I give a lot of promoters credit. I really wish that Barry Braun with the XR guy would have continued the purses he was running with the 40,000 on Friday, 50,000 on Saturday, because, and I'm not saying it's sustainable for any promoter. I'm just saying they paid $4 grand, $3 grand, and $4 grand. If I remember, I'm sorry, it was 30 and 40, and it paid $3 grand for 10th and $4 grand for 10th. So if you ran 2 nights at the track and ran 10th, you walked out with $7,000. That's a lot of money for race teams right now in this world that are kind of just struggling a little bit.
Well, the only issue with the XR deal is apparently you didn't walk out with $7,000. It took you 120 days. Checks in the mail. I guess that's what everybody was saying.
That's a whole nother. I will say I will say I'm not, like I said, I'm not here to defend anybody.
I'm just saying.
Anytime I race, I always got paid.
So okay.
So I always got paid, but like what I was getting at though is you see the car counts. Look back at that year. They had car counts upwards of 50 plus cars once they changed their purses, the majority of their races. And then the next year he came out with 2 $5,000s and $100,000 to win race because he thought it'd get him way more publicity. Maybe I don't really talk to him that much, but he redesigned his focus. The money was exactly the same. If you added Friday night up and Saturday night up, it was the same money paid over 2 days. And we started getting 28 cars because I went out to Nebraska, 26 cars. And I know why, is because I know how much money I made that year because I didn't win. The year before I didn't win a couple, but that year I didn't win any. And I also didn't run fifth that much. And when you're walking out at a $100,000 to win race that pays $2 grand for 10th, it's just easier to go do something else instead of driving 20 hours. You know what I mean? So I think we could look at a lot of that. That would probably be the easiest way to help things. But also, it's hard for me to tell a promoter that says to me, hey man, I've made that thing 75 grand to win, and that's why all my fans are here. I don't, until I'm on that side of it, I guess I can't really argue with the guy, but I just wish it was different.
Well, and that's why, the charter deal, I think, could help owners if it's done right. It's supposed to be treated like a franchisee.
That's a little out of my league.
Well, I mean, you look at Michael Jordan suing right now because they believe the charter system currently is not done right. They don't think that the teams are getting a proper cut because the idea of the charter is that obviously this Lucas Oil Series and Flow's making good money being this product. The teams that are helping put this product on should be receiving compensation outside of performance for being a part of the product that they're selling.
Yeah, probably what you're really getting at, and the kind I don't disagree, is it would be nice if we could somehow have a little honesty about what's happening so we could help each other instead of promoters or drivers. And, we're kind of all on the outskirts of never letting anybody in on what we're really making or doing, and that's kind of why we end up where we're at. I mean, until somebody wants to share the streaming numbers for sure, which, I mean, you're involved in this, you have an idea, but still, until you see it in black and white and see the checks getting wrote, it's hard to know for sure what we deserve or what we can think, and we can spout off and tell everybody this or that. But until the numbers are there, and until you also have to understand the scope of a flow of sports, our streaming numbers are good, but are they good enough to exist without whatever has happened to be able to build it up because they have whatever other things going on their platform?
Right.
So, like I said, I'm not defending them. Believe me, I'd like to have more money, but I also know that I won a title. I think 3 years ago it was 75 grand to win, and then the next year it was 150, I believe, and then this year it was 250. So you gotta, it's just I'm looking at a minor tweak. You're looking at a major one, and I don't know.
Well, I
we
just
get
see
there.
it as, there's the number one investors that are putting their ass on the line, I think, are track promoters who put on big events for one. But then number two is the car owner, and
Yeah.
in all investment situations when there's a product, the more you invest, the more you're supposed to get the bigger cut in the return.
Yeah.
So it operates almost backwards in a way now because of the streaming.
Yeah. Yeah, and then like you said, some of that I wish honestly that I just drove and didn't know because it's
Didn't have to care about
you
money.
hope.
Just fell off the trees.
No, well, I mean, heck, I don't know. I don't know what would happen if I didn't care about money. I mean, I feel like some days I don't care about money when I look at the account and wondering where it's gone sometimes. So this racing deal, dude, it's a wild thing, man. It's been a good days, bad days, and everything in between.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess we could get off that. Obviously, you're mentioning
Yeah.
owners. Boom Briggs is your new owner. I didn't know you drink Bush Light. I guess you're gonna have to now.
I don't.
Oh God. Do you drink? I don't think you do. Do you? You just
Yeah, I
you
drink a little.
snowboard. That's it, right?
I'll have. It depends on.
You're a Crown and Coke
I
guy,
drink
right?
more. I'm more of a liquor drinker than anything. It depends on if it's football Sunday, right? And Buffalo's playing. And like this Sunday will probably be a good day. If you're hanging out with me, I'm gonna probably be into a few here and there and pumped up. So
man, that's a trap game. Let's just talk football for a minute. Is that not a trap game?
Dude.
That's a scary
It's
game.
one of those, because some days it's just like it. Look at you see it in race, and this guy shows up, doesn't even know why he's good. I mean, I lived it in early 2000s. I rolled into Volusia and was setting poles in a late model and won a UMP race, and everybody's like, "How'd you do it?" And I'm like, "I have no idea how I did it. Don't even know why I'm even competitive." So like, you got this team with a good coach, with a rookie quarterback who is a gamer. He was a gamer everywhere he's been. Yeah, I don't like it. I would have rather had seen Miami or somebody along those lines, just because they just looked like they'd had enough for the season already.
Right. It looks like Broncos have
you bring
just
them
slowly
up into 30-degree weather. Yeah.
Yeah, Broncos have just slowly been building up. Slowly the
They're gonna be
quarterback's
pumped.
getting
I
better.
understand.
Their defense is good. It's a scary deal. It's not like they got a coach that's never been there. In Buffalo,
everything's lining up for somebody to make some money. The spread's way too big. Everything's way too much. Like, doesn't make a lot of sense. There's no way you should have these spreads get up to 9+ points for a road in the playoffs, in my opinion. Like, especially a team that can score. So I don't know.
But here's the other kicker too. I mean, if Broncos roll up in there and it's fourth quarter and y'all are down 2 touchdowns with 3 minutes to go and everybody's seeing it's over, is that going to surprise any Buffalo fans? It's kind of like that's like the kind of
Bills fans. We're a crazy bunch, man. We always think the bottom's dropping out. So we would be like, yep, we knew it was going to happen, but like we're nervous of every team. So it's like, this is one of the better years that the teams played, and they're together, and it's crazy. And we're always nervous. So it's but it's good nervous on it, just like racing. Like I said, this deal, like we were talking about with Boom, it's unique. He's close to home. I get to be able to get in my truck and go over there whenever I need to help out. And Chubb Frank, obviously, they have the whole shop with Chubb Frank Racing and everything he's done over the years. It's a great group of guys, man, and that place has everything you need to go fast. And I'm excited to hopefully show out with it, man. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I get to have my hands directly in a lot of the stuff.
Now, Boom hasn't yelled at you like he does his employees on the phone, does he? I mean, you've never experienced Psycho Boom?
I don't think he'd yell at me that much. He just talks loud. He's kind of like Samuel Jackson, just like the way he normally talks is kind of half screaming as it is. So
this is true.
I think like Boom and I go a ways back. I mean, when I first started, he was crewing for Chubb as Chubb's crew chief, and then obviously he started racing. And a lot of people don't realize that he won a bunch of
ULMS
championship. Yes, and ran really well. And you get on the road sometimes, and you just get into a rut, and I think sometimes they might have spread themselves thin by like running two teams. Like this is a deal where it is not a two-car team that will operate like they've done before. Now, don't get me wrong, Boom's going to drop in, but I've also had so much experience when it was me and Vic Coffey with Sweeteners and Coffey McCreadie Enterprises running a two-car deal and running together everywhere that I'm not saying the other guys didn't know how to do it. I just have lived it, and I just think we're going to be okay. I know that maybe the success might not be immediate, but that I've been through that. But if we continue to work and get better, we'll have success, and hopefully both Boom will be fast and I'll be fast, and we'll all be happy.
Well, it is going to be rockets, I believe, correct? It's a rocket chassis set up there, and Boom and Mark have a very close relationship, and it's not like you really had a bad year last year. It's like, what was a better rocket chassis car in the country? Maybe Tyler Erb, but he kind of ran some cherry picking races. I'm sure if you would have dropped into a regional late model race, you probably would have walked the field on him. You only ran nationally.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I mean, you know how it is driving that deal. When I decided to take it or decided to take the ride, I knew what I was walking into, and I will say that I think all of us wanted better results. Mark decided to make a change. That's kind of up to him, right? And he thought with Brandon, obviously they could go back to the way things were, and him and I had a bunch of good talks, and I was okay with a lot of what was going on when he decided to do something different. Partly because nothing's always perfect for everybody. That was a great ride, and I had a lot of fun, but it wasn't as easy sometimes to not have as much control because they're a well-oiled machine and they're used to the way they do things. And plus we brought out a new car, and it was just a lot of little things. I think we were trending upwards, and Mark will tell you himself, we had some things happen that he hasn't had happen in decades with some motor issues that just crept up just like anything. Not when you're running 10th, crept up right when we're winning or ready to win races or leading races. And so it didn't end up being as easy as a year, but that's okay. I mean, I don't look at it as a failure. Like I said, I go back, and don't get me wrong, I'd like to have more volumes of wins, but if I'm not going to get as many, I look at them, they got to be something that matters. And if you go back and try to figure out who won down there in Speed Weeks and who won a major crown jewel, there's not very many of them, and I was one of those. So I've been able to manage to do that for I don't even know how many years now. So that's what I focus on. I can only control what's in front of me, and this deal here, obviously we're going to work with Mark, and they're going to try to help us as best as possible. And if they're happy and I can get back to where I want to be with this new car, and it's a win-win for everybody. I'm excited just because if we can get this car where I think it can be, because I think it's got a lot of potential. Obviously, there's more Longhorns right now out there in the national scene than Rockets, so we'll have this advantage that we talked about earlier in the show is more of they'd have to start buying them and putting them together, because I have more than a few in the shop already. So we're going to try to ride that out and see where I'm excited. It's going to be exciting and a lot of fun.
Well, and it looks like you're trying to do some kind of vehicle reveal as well, right? What's the deal there? Is the 39 gone forever? I mean, what is it a whole new deal? What are we doing here with the?
Well, I'm not gonna.
You're posting it on, or you're doing a live. I guess it is Friday.
They're gonna do it. It's yes. I am gonna be. I don't know how I'm gonna be a part of it or if I'm a part of it. We've done some stuff that and obviously the cars are pretty much buttoned up. They're gonna do a live reveal on my Facebook page. Which obviously just got started. So we're trying to push people over to it. And it's just, like I was telling you earlier, we're trying to do some things that'd be pretty cool to just bring the team and bring us into the forefront a little bit. And we thought, okay, we tried to design a car. We worked with the Night Owl guys on some designs, and some of the stuff was okay. And I think what we've landed on is pretty unique and pretty cool for us. And why not hold it back and try to do something that maybe people can get excited about, and garner some like I said, some stuff for the team and get them pumped up. And so we're going to try this. I don't know how it's going to go, and it might not go very well, but by Friday at 10 o'clock, we're going to do kind of like a Formula One, reveal of a livery and see what it does.
So what, can you give any details? Will it be 39?
I can't. It's a work in progress. Like we have some ideas still that we're working on, and I haven't even nailed all of it down just yet. I think I know what we're going to do for sure. I will know more. I mean, obviously tomorrow's the last day before I got to make the major decision on numbers and everything. It's been a small, discussion, because like 39's been my number forever. And I know a lot of Boom's families, his father and stuff ran 99 and things like that. So it's, I don't know. We're playing around with some things. I think we're playing around with colors. I don't want to like let it out too early, just because obviously, that kind of ruins the surprise. But it's, right. I think it's going to be pretty cool, and hopefully, like, look at, dude, at the end of the day, we got to run good. So all this stuff is all well and good and fun, but we're just trying to, and also we're partnered up. Like, we're trying to streamline everything. At the merchandise, we've been with ASI for merchandise forever. We also have probably a lot of nights where people don't know that we're with ASI Racewear, and we're trying to partner all this up together to just push people to see the team and get it out there. Like you know better than I do, and that's the world. So we're just trying to get access of a place where you can see where we're going to be and what we're doing, and if there's questions, they can get to me a lot quicker than I don't really want to get back on my X account that much, but I might even play around on that a little bit. I'm following Donnie shots a little bit. I see her once in a while. I don't know if he's doing it, but somebody's fools around with his a little bit, and I'll play around with it as long as it's not taken away from what I'm trying to do as a driver.
That's hard to do. It's hard to balance. That's
hard to balance.
It's a difficult thing. I've been trying to look at some of the questions down here. Somebody did say earlier, it caught my eye. I'll say it because it was a good question. What do you think of this Lucas Oil chase situation?
Well, I will say this. When it first came out and they asked me, I had just won both the last two championships, so if anybody probably didn't want to change much, it'd be me, just because obviously we were really good at point racing and was able to get in a rhythm. I personally didn't mind it, just because if you look at things objectively and you're like, okay, roll out the last 20 plus years of your career, a lot of thirds, a lot of fourths and points and some seconds, and I think 3 championships. So it's like, this deal's actually right up my alley to maybe help me out where I've always got a chance. So selfishly, I'm like, that ain't no big deal, because very rarely I've got 3 championships, but that's in a 25-year career. So a lot of other times I'm going to be like, I'm glad they're resetting these points. So I was all for it. I didn't make it the first year, and I think the one race deal just was really tough and didn't go over very good. I commend Rick Schwally and the Lucas staff. They flipped it around and put it to the what you see now, which I believe was 5. I think we ran 4 or 5 out of the 6, but it was an end of the year deal. Personally, being a part of it and being around it did bolster the
it gave attention.
The fan.
Yeah.
Yes, and it also, the fans seem to be way more jacked up, and that's a positive. That's all. When people are coming in and they're excited, and then I understand that the 4 teams got a lot of pub when it happened. The beauty of it, but also 5 teams, because like me and Hudson went to the end with SSI, so that was a little thing that was intriguing. And then you turn around and the 4 teams got all kinds of stuff too. That's intriguing. Well, then that's 5 teams that normally they'd be getting 1 or 2 teams would be getting some pub towards the end of the year. So I think it was a positive. Now, like I said, does that mean it's going to be like that every year? I don't know. I think this year, the second year was way better than the first and way more exciting and a lot of fun for a lot of teams, I think.
Well, I mean, going forward, you are going to have 4 guys who will have their points reset with just a few races to decide the championship. It does have that playoff kind of sense, you know, and there's something to that.
Yeah,
That's
I
why
mean, a
NASCAR does it.
traditionalist isn't going to like it. I mean, it's like, you know, I mean, like everybody, I mean, I know this when the number 1 car, Chastain, rode that wall was a viral moment in racing history for that division. I watched the last race just to see what he was going to do, and it brought me, because I hadn't been really watching a ton of NASCAR races unless they're like on as you're kind of sitting at home and flipping through some channels. You pop on for a little while. Sometimes it takes a moment to be able to bring everybody in, and then the format was pretty cool at that point. So there's probably going to be some years where people aren't going to like it, but a lot more race teams got paid because of this, and it actually might have forced the Outlaws to step theirs up. You'd have to ask them on their side, the drivers, what they think, or the fans, what they think of how that point fund or that point chase played out. I mean, I've been on both sides of it. This was pretty exciting to be a part of it last year, and especially as hard as we were working at Rocket trying to get into it, because we did have a big gap. I think at one point we were 10th or 9th in points, which is a long ways to go, and so that was really rewarding and fun. And I mean, I think it's a neat deal. I mean, it's a unique deal and neat, and if it gets us all paid more, man, sometimes that's what you got to do.
Well, we did have a person want to know. Brandon Lockwich said, did Tim and Boom ever consider jumping to the Outlaws side? Looks like they upped their payouts and points money this year.
Yeah, we haven't really. We've talked about what we want to do. Obviously, Lucas has been the mainstay of where I've been the last bunch of years. But before that, I was an Outlaw guy, and I think
you were the original
right
Dirty
now,
Dozen or whatever, or Mean 15?
No, I was the year at. So the Dirty Dozen was set up, to get off base 1 second. It was set up. They had the 12 guys, and then me and 2 other guys ran for Rookie of the Year. So there was not all of them finished, but there was a couple of us that ran for Rookie of the Year. And the way the Dirty Dozen contract worked for your appearance money was you had to knock somebody out in the top 12 to be able to take their contract. And I was fortunate enough to get into the top 12 in points and take a contract away. And then year 2, I was a Dirty Dozen member, and that's kind of how that deal was set up. It in my opinion, was another, I thought, good idea of how to give you a little bit of, you had 12 guys, Dirty Dozen. You could market it. You could also market, hey man, come in here and take one of these guys' contracts and have a rivalry that way. And there was some good things that came about on it. And I think some of the promoters at the time let it fizzle, if that makes any sense. Like, I think it was a good idea. And so they get back to the Outlaw deal. I was an Outlaw. I love the Outlaws. So I think any team right now, the way Speed Weeks is set up, would be not wise to just guarantee that you're not going to look at either tour. We're able to run them both. So really, at the end of the day, it makes sense to put your hat in both of them and then make a decision later. Now, I haven't sat down. I know I should have more plans. We've been focusing on getting cars ready and knowing that Lucas races right off the rip is where we're going. We've talked about it. We just haven't really. It just kind of, we're going to play a little bit by ear. I mean, obviously we're going to lean towards where we've been, but also if the bottom drops out, I mean, you can't, sometimes you need to go do something different just to pump yourself up. So I don't know. We'll see what happens when we get in Florida.
Is that still the option on the table in today's late model racing? Like, is contracts not signed? I know Dirt Tracker was talking about this the other day. Like, how do we know when a guy is actually committed, or does nobody sign really until after Florida, or maybe just one or two guys that do?
Well, for years, it was, you could do both or whatever was going on, and then people would go their own separate ways. So you did have some change between guys here and there. Well, then there was several years where obviously there was some racing that was scheduled kind of on top of each other, so there was no chance to do anything. Well, last year, I believe, maybe even 2 years ago, last year and now this year, they've both series have worked out their schedules where they're not on top of each other. So theoretically, you can go run everything, and you can sign up, and you got to pay money to sign up. So yes, there is a financial risk involved.
Yeah, they created a deposit system, right? That was created recently?
Yes, they created a system, but at the end of the day, it's just like anything. I mean, I've done this several times. There's been not several years, but a few years in doing this where I was leading in the other tour and had a bad run on the Outlaws or Lucas, whichever one it happened to be, and stayed the course. And I don't know if at the time, I don't think you know it, but I think looking back that might have been a little foolish based off of how are you going to jump? Like, it's just simple math. If you're 10th in points if there's 15 travelers and you're 12th coming out of Florida, it's a numbers game. It's just theoretically hard to think that you're going to jump 12 guys to get to the winning this thing. And now obviously with Lucas having a reset, it makes it a little easier. But like, if anybody will tell you it was easy, I mean, we climbed over a lot of teams, and some of the things that helped us was probably turmoil with other drivers switching teams, which held them back a little bit. And I switched teams, which probably didn't help me right off the bat. So it's just, I think you'd just be a fool to not keep your options open for anything, especially, like you said, when you look at the thing, I think you can say what you want. Maybe the Outlaws look a little thinner on the back half of the pack one year, and then the next year Lucas looks a little thinner. Right now, if Thornton goes one way and Pierce goes the other, and obviously Brandon Shepherd, their champions, coming over, there's heavy hitters on either side. So you can pick your poison, and you're going to get good no matter which side you go to. So
you're saying it is currently possible to run both World of Outlaw and Lucas Oil full time?
At least for a month. That's like, so you run all of Florida, and then I believe they don't schedule on top of each other in March for a weekend. So then you make a decision at that point. And that's, so if you're looking at the Outlaws, depending on whether they have a system where they only count X amount of races, but you're looking at 3 races, you're looking at 6 races at Volusia, then you turn around, you're looking at Lucas, and you're looking at 4, 4, and 5. So, you're looking at 13 races or whatever there. You probably you'll have an idea of where you're stacked up if you run all of those and where your best shot. If you're just looking at a bona fide shot, what your best shot would do. Because some of the points, like the Outlaw point system, is a little hard to really gain points if you're consistent. So if you can, up until several years ago, I think it was Kyle Strickler was the first one, but the point chase had never been lost if you were up 50, I believe, or 52 or 55 at any point. So because of the way their points breakdown is. Now, Lucas is a little bit bigger because they value wins way more, and they value fast times and stuff like that. So you could make some hay in the Lucas. So you could literally go through this deal and probably have a good idea if you think you could win either one of them or where you're at by running them all. And then basically by May or by April, you make your decision.
So there isn't no true emphasis on getting a tow package or anything really by anybody to start the year?
There is. I think when you sign up for both, the way that it's a typical deal, you sign up for both, I believe, and I might be a little wrong, but you're going to get X amount of perks no matter which one you're on if you pay the money. See, now it used to be, it was based
so there's,
off of
hold
points.
on, so there's people that actively, like right now, have technically both signed up for World Outlaw and Lucas Oil.
I believe Max Belair, I think I read, signed up for both, and I'd have to go through.
Are you?
And look, like we haven't signed up for the Outlaw one yet. No, we're going to think about it. Like I said, we probably will. It doesn't make sense not to. I don't know yet. I mean, it's just financially, like the way that the sanctioning bodies have kind of done this, they've opened it up because they want money or whatever they want. You could have, I don't even know how many people can sign up. I think as many as they want on the Outlaws and pay their money. The Lucas, I believe, a lot of the things work off of the year before. And so as for me, it's kind of the perfect situation. We have the points from the year before where we get the Lucas money plus to show up, and then you pay the Outlaw one, and that in turn gets you perks with passes and things of that nature. And then they hold your show-up money till later, I believe. But at the end of the day, if you make the decision and you go, but if you don't, you're out a little bit of money, but It's a crazy thing. They've kind of opened it up to be able to do it. So
Do you almost
it's
get
just like any of us races.
Do you
Take
almost get?
advantage of anything we get.
Do you almost get that deposit back with the tow money in Florida?
You won't get it back. You'll get between your passes. I think you get almost half back or a little more with the passes. So at the end of the day, it's like anything, man. If you're buying an engine and it costs $35,000, but the $38,000 is just the better. You've already spent the $35,000, and I'm not saying that's what you do with everything in business, but when you're looking at, okay, we got 2 series. If I pay this sanctioning thing or whatever they call it, you get X amount of passes. You add all that up, you're going to pay the X amount of passes. Like, I'm going to run these races anyways. So if it's a little more money to give a basically security blanket that if I'm good here and not good over there, that I can have a decision to make, then that would just be good business, in my opinion. I think you'd be short-sighted to just not take advantage of what they're letting you do. Now, if they make, obviously there's ways of making deals, then you don't do it. But I mean, we've rolled in Lucas done a lot for me, but I've also had the Outlaws do a lot for me, and I believe I've done a lot for both of them. And it's not about, hey, you have to be loyal and you're screwing the other guy over. We have 2 major sanctioning bodies that are embedded and been successful for several years. So it's not maybe what's happening in the sprint division.
Right.
So, you know what I mean? It's not, we don't really fight each other as much as what everybody might want. We're kind of
more competitive.
Like they do this. Yeah. I think what they do is hopefully both of them make each other better, make them both strive to be better. And I think XR pushed them in a direction with money that made them all put money in, and now they've pushing each other with money, and we're all hopefully going to benefit from it. So I can't sit here and tell you today we're 100% committed to anything. I just know that, like I told you, we're in the end of the day, I would see signing up. I haven't really spoke to Boom about it, but I will. I mean, we can make a lot of decisions when we get in that truck on Sunday to ride down the road, because that's just like anything. You got your team together and you can focus, and you don't have things in life getting in your way. You're driving for 16 hours till you get to the track, and we can figure a lot of that out as we're going down through it.
Well, and it's intriguing to me. Like I said, Dirt Tracker was wanting to know, why can't we know who's on what series earlier? And it sounds like the system is kind of set up to, Florida is almost like the draft. We're going to find out where you go based on how you perform down there, and it's crazy. The other crazy thing about Florida is, recollection serves me, Kyle Larson was trying to run the damn late model and the midget because Chili Bowl was on the same week as Wild West Shootout previously. Now, Wild West Shootout is this week, and y'all's opener, that traditionally I believe was the week after, is now next week. And that's why you're not, or one of the reasons I would assume, why you're not running the Chili Bowl this year.
Yep.
And you're a former champion, so it should be deserved. Ricky Thornton's going to try it, but I guess if he don't make the A, he's not even going to go back. What is the off season anymore? I mean,
that's twofold. Obviously, it depends on what you're looking to get out. I mean, when I was in my early 30s and stuff, I was probably, I liked the 6 months, or not 6 months, 2 months or 3 months or whatever it was, and didn't race too much in February, and you did your speed weeks. But now, I mean, I'm at the part of my life where I loved racing back then, and I still love it. So and I know that I'm not dumb. I know this isn't going to go on forever. So I kind of enjoy the fact that we get to keep doing this. I mean, if my owner's happy and the team's happy, and you love racing, as long as the weather's not completely pitiful, and these promoters are doing what they want to do because they think they can make it work, I'm all about racing. I mean, I've always been that way. That's why I like that stuff that Ricky's going to do this week. It was funny, like you said about social media. I think I did that 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. I went back and forth between the Chili Bowl and Volusia because I wasn't running. I think I ran Monday or Tuesday and then flew to Volusia and run 2 nights or 3 nights over there, and then flew back and ran. I think it was the year I made the race. The last year I made the A main, either A or the B, whatever. So it's I've done it. I mean, it's actually was kind of nice to get away and not have to have the pressure of wondering what you were going to do on Saturday when you're already raced on Monday or Tuesday. You know what I mean? I went and just raced all week.
Right. Well,
So I think you'll enjoy that part of it.
Well, it was a little easier trying to navigate from Volusia, you're 20 minutes from Daytona International Airport. I mean, Golden Isle.
Yeah, I mean, look, man, this isn't 1960. Come on. I mean, you need to, USAC guys better than I do. They do that stuff every weekend. They race a silver crown car on pavement over here, and then somehow get to some dirt race the next day somewhere.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's like it goes back to media. Like when I did it, nobody really knew because I didn't really tell anybody. I just went and did it.
Well, I'm just more surprised that Golden Isle's moved up a week just because we lost East Bay. You think things would have pushed a week?
Well, I think because Daytona got pushed a week, and I think what everybody learned from the experiment we did last year with going to Golden Isle after speed weeks, and especially with the high limit sprints and the big names,
it was a flop.
That were in, it was a bad deal. But I think the guys that have done it for a while, you can go back to Florida after, but you can't go like the 500 ends, and people have put their hard earned paychecks into going to the 500 or whatever they do, like down in Florida. And then once this 500's over with, that's it. They're going home. And
spring break's over. Yeah.
Spring break's over. Yeah. So that's over with. And so I think when Daytona got moved up, I think Rick was worried. I think Golden Isle wanted to have races, obviously. He had nowhere to put them, so the only logical move was to go further ahead, which I think we're all going to be not liking that because it's supposed to be really cold. But I think that was the natural move, but that doesn't mean same thing like except for it doesn't mean it's right. Maybe next year it's if Daytona's going to stay where it's at, which it seems to be that week ahead like it used to be. Maybe we only run, and unfortunately, Lucas doesn't maybe need to have as many races. That's not such a bad thing either down there.
What replaced the East Bay week, or was the move up just?
We're going to Bubba's. We're going to Bubba's.
We're back to Bubba then, or
we're going. No, we go Golden Isle, Alltech, Bubba's, and then Golden Isle, Volusia for the Outlaws, then Alltech, then Bubba's, and then back to Volusia. So the week that was always East Bay turned into Bubba's, but technically the week that was always East Bay was back a week. Like Daytona 500 was 1 week later, I think the last probably 6-7 years or more, which freed up the Chili Bowl thing. And now that's why the Wild West, everything got moved up based off of, I believe, the 500. The Chili Bowl didn't move because they're not, how they are. They're not moving for nobody. For nothing. So they're their own deal. So, but when the 500 got moved up, it basically pushed everything up a week on our stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, like I said, it's going to be hopefully another start to a good year. Hopefully.
So you are Lucas Oil, but maybe not.
We plan on sitting down and looking at some things, but I mean, I've already looked at the stuff. Everything has a pro and con. The money has definitely gotten a lot closer. I commend the Outlaws for doing what they did. Now they have done some of the stuff that I talk about, which is middle of the purse, seventh. They've pumped them up. Some of their races that aren't $50,000 to win, that are like 35 or 30, I believe, have very, very good middle through purses. So that is gonna, like I said, a lot of this stuff will get talked about. We talked a little bit about some stuff, but get talked about in depth as we head on down. I mean, like I told you, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm going Outlaws or I'm going Lucas 100% because it's not true. What's going to happen is that we'll keep all of our options always open. We plan on doing what we've always done, but also you never know what kind of curveball gets thrown. I mean, I'd have a hard time looking somebody in the eye if I happen to win every Outlaw show and have a 100+ point lead, knowing that that's almost insurmountable, to turn around and be 12th in Lucas because I broke a motor 3 nights or something. You know what I mean? Like, right. No, and I tell you this knowing that I've done that, but I'm trying to learn, what's best for me as a driver and financially in the team. So like, that's kind of what we're looking at.
Well,
don't get me wrong. We're always looking for help. If somebody comes along, a marketing partner comes along and the money's right and they're like, hey, we want you here, we're open. I mean, this car has a lot of good sponsors on it. A lot of them are boom sponsors, some stuff manufacturing that I've brought over and things of that nature. But there's always room for somebody that wants me somewhere else if they think we're reputable to represent them, and they want to say, hey, X amount of dollars, and we want you to be a Lucas guy or an Outlaw guy. Money talks, and we're willing to listen, man. We're always willing to listen to partners.
Well, I mean, back to the format. Wouldn't you say you're more of a traditional points format kind of guy? I mean, have you took your finishing orders from 2024 and said, well, if I would have ran this way in World of Outlaws, here's where I would have landed? Have you done anything like that or thought about like that?
No, just because it's like that's probably my shortcomings. What I feel like that I need to be successful. It changes. I mean, and this, like I said, this is going to sound like a slight. When I went Lucas Racing, in my opinion, they had the tire roll they had, the talent they had, because Bloomquist had gone over and Steve Francis had gone over, and the Outlaws were still tough, but we had lost some of the major guys that had really pushed this thing to, in my opinion, they were still winning. And when you looked at a lot of the races that were getting run, say, Crown Jewels, Lucas guys were finishing ahead of us a lot, even at our own. I know we went to Fairbury one time, and 4 out of the top 5 was Lucas guys. So I thought, okay, iron's going to sharpen iron, and I need to go over here. Well, so I did that. I think that really helped my career as far as trying to get to where I was winning 100-lappers and Crown Jewels and stuff of that nature. Well, I don't know if I'm always in that same boat. I might need a night to race and not have to worry about running 15th, like what Turbo did. I give him a lot of credit. His car and his psyche and things got a lot better because I think he needed to learn how to work on his car and make his car faster without having to worry about being stuck on the road at the same place where if you don't want to go. So some of that's going to factor into what I want to do, because if I think, hey, if I think I can get the fastest race car in the country and it doesn't matter what tour I'm on, I might need to look at which one might be a little easier after Speed Weeks too, based off of how well or on the points.
So are you worried about being that off the mark out of the get-go here, or?
No, I'm
You never know, but I mean, Florida can get you down. It can make you not even want to race this year. I mean, it can do it to people even in a good car situation. I mean,
yeah. Here's what worries me. I'm no different. Like I told you before, if you have ever been to Boom Shop and been into where Chubb Frank Racing is, that is a first-class place with all the equipment it takes to win races. Also, though, you can't just plop somebody in and guarantee anything. So if you to sit there and think that me taking this brand new car, I'm doing some things now. Like, I knew what was going on with our cars, but also I didn't know maybe every fine detail because those guys knew what they were doing, and I'm not going to I don't need to step on any of the toes on that race team to get there. So I kind of would float and look, and we would talk, and we'd work together to get faster. This stuff's going to be on me now, and I'm not jumping in a Longhorn that I've driven for X amount of years, since 17 or actually 15. I'm in an XR, 1.2, a brand new rocket that I've driven for less than 35 races or 40 races, which I believe has a lot of potential. Now, I'm also on a different shock brand, and I haven't been able to. So some of this stuff takes time. Now, I believe I can do it. I believe we're going to be really good. It's just I can't guarantee, we wheel out a Golden Isle that we're going to just dominate. It's just because we have a plan. I think it's a good plan. I think we should be very successful. It might not happen immediately. And that's the whole point of making sure the team's focused on what you do to continue to go forward. I mean, too many times people just give up and quit because they worry about outside noise. So I'm not here to tell you that we're going to suck. I'm just telling you, if it's not easy, it ain't no big deal. We understand this. This stuff ain't easy, and if we stay the course, we have everything we need to be successful. Now we just got to figure out how to place it.
Okay. Well, somebody in the comments just said, let Tim McCreadie know that me and my fellow West Virginia people appreciated him driving the Rocket one, so you shouldn't feel bad that you couldn't tinker on all of it. Another point that was brought up here, which is very interesting, somebody's upset at Lucas Oil because I'm sure this is just a fan, but it's interesting to bring up because of recent activity in the sprint car world. They said because they lit Poopy Bobby Pierce, obviously not a fan. He did say Poopy though. I mean, you appreciate saying
Yeah.
Poopy. He said Poopy Bobby Pierce apparently run anything he wants when he's at their series races. It says, watch how Bobby's car just dominates a Lucas Oil race, but in a World of Outlaw race, he doesn't. And they actually tech the cars in the World of Outlaw series. Now, the reason I find that funny, we did just have this big high limit excursion. I don't know if you kept up with it or heard about it because you are a late model, where their former tech series director came out, or tech director came out, and accused the current series guy of making him turn a blind eye to certain drivers and names in the tech area. When it came to MSD
Hmm.
boxes, crank triggers, weight on the scales. Well, not weight on the scales. He actually missed that one. And basically accused High Limits Mike Hess of forcing him to not tech certain guys' cars in certain ways. Um, and then on the heels of this, the sprint car community reacted and basically said, well, guys, unfortunately, this is just how it is. Basically, was the response. This happens everywhere. Everybody gets special treatment. That's how it goes. Um, do you feel like that happens in the late model industry? I had a sprint car insider call me and say they hear late model racing is worse in this department on letting certain guys slide in the tech areas or ignoring certain areas of the car.
I don't know. I mean, I think I don't. I think at the end of the day, it's just like anything, man. You think Tom Brady didn't get treated?
Did you
Better
hear about
than
this
Gus?
though?
The sprint car deal, I actually didn't know much about it, and then, like I said, I've been thumbing through my X stuff, and something popped up, and I had no clue what they were even talking about. So of course I thumbed through and tried to figure some of it out, and I mean, I can't comment on the dealings I've had with Mike Hess. Have always been, look at that. I got nothing but love for Mike
Right.
Hess. He was
I mean,
literally the guy that changed the regular bar right before I won the Chili Bowl. And
he's a good
I've been
guy.
around him. I've been around him at Volusia a lot. It's news to me if he's acting that way, because I always thought he was kind of the other way too much, which was maybe a little bit too much on people for things. But also, I'm not in the division. The tech guy, I don't know him that well. And I got nothing against him.
Well, it's
On
not
our
even
side,
necessarily the accusal of Mike Hess here. It was the reaction of everybody saying this is status quo, how things operate. Privileged drivers
well,
get
some of
privileged treatment.
some of it depends on what it is. You know, it's like if you're telling me like, so if you're saying okay, it all depends.
Oh, 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 hold on. We're getting them back. We got to talking about the real stuff. Illuminati's trying to shut us down, guys. Illuminati's trying to shut us down. We're not letting them go. We're not letting them go. Hold on. Illuminati is mad that we brought up the real situation here. Illuminati, they caught on. This is just like when me
Yeah,
and Jeremy Mayfield started talking about gambling in NASCAR. Shut us down.
yeah, that happens. You know what I mean? Like I was telling you, I don't think like I don't. Some of the stuff it has to be something that really matters. We have so many rules in this book that we could throw away. So
Well, he specifically pointed out crank triggers and MSD boxes that he was told to not tear apart and to not investigate. So we're talking about in the
well, I
sprint
mean,
car world, that's traction control departments. These, Wicker Bill wasn't the same as others was another claim. Blatant
yeah.
rules,
Well, I don't listen. We don't. The MSD stuff, they'll take boxes. I mean, we probably don't do it as much as we used to. I think a lot of people feel like the traction control stuff's kind of, mellowed out, or people just aren't that interested in. Like we'll take shocks apart a lot. We'll take we have a lot of weight on components that they'll check that, and I will say our body rules, yeah, they're out of control. I mean, there's a couple of cars. there's always a car or two every year that's basically probably way out of whack, and the problem you get is if you let it run too long, here you are. And I I don't know what the answer to that is, because I've been on that side. I had a car, I thought, several years ago that probably had the biggest aero advantage of everybody. And would it fit every rule? Of course it wouldn't. Did they measure everything? No, they didn't. So it's kind of like, what do you do?
So you're not admitting it because you got the pass. They said that's Tim McCreadie.
No,
leave him alone.
I don't think. No. I think here's what I will say. Things have to happen. You can't tell somebody on Tuesday that it's a different winner. So if you can't get through a night and throw that checkered flag and get this thing done, that's a problem. And it goes back to the same thing I said before. We do not need to tear cars completely down. There's ways to handle things that maybe could be handled without a disqualification long before what you need to do is, if there's something that could happen, you never let it get out of the gate. That's the problem. It's the one thing I've seen for years in our sport. Guy shows up, body's clearly illegal. Okay, fix it next week. Well, he doesn't show up for another month. All right, fix it next week. If you turn them away, that's the one thing that people don't understand. If you don't let them get onto the surface, then that's when you end up having a real, you can really get something done. Because how do I say to this owner that's spending upwards of $600,000-$700,000 or more a year, why didn't you get the race tonight? And I keep telling him I don't want to change this right rear quarter panel that's skewed out 2 inches. And he told me to go home, and I told him I don't care. And that's all well and good. You can show your chest and show some bravado, but I doubt these owners are going to want to, sooner or later, going to tell you to pull the body in.
Right.
So that's something that probably could get fixed, but that's always been the problem. I think the problem we've always had is that we have professionals, we have privateers and non-professionals. So how do you juggle it all? And a lot of times the people that aren't doing it every day think, I'll tell you this, the people that travel and race these cars, we think we're getting picked on more than anybody that shows up half the time. So it's, on my side of it, I've been several times where I said, hey man, the problem is this car shows up every 2 months with this driver that, when you look at this quote unquote top 25 drivers list, he's like third. He doesn't travel any tour, and he's beating the brakes office, and I can clearly see what's going on with that car, but you never make him fix it. And they're like, what do you want us to do? He won't come. And I'm like, well, so there's always that.
Right, and that was the excuse for the blatant cheating across the board, the country, the regions, and sprint car racing was we need cars.
Yeah, but I think you can do it. I really feel, I don't feel like they take huge advantage in our deal. I think we have a lot of, some of the stuff you just don't know. It's just like the tire washing. It was a problem. People are washing tires. That was the big thing, washing tires. What can you use to grind on your tires? So then it was simple green, somebody was saying, and all this and that. I don't know, man. Here's what I'll tell you. Maybe I didn't do some of this right, but I think 2 years ago at East Bay, I simple green tires all day long. When I say all day, I'm talking from 9 in the morning till qualifying, and I qualified 6th in a heat. And the night before, I qualified 3rd in a heat, not doing any of it. So I was
you were desperate.
Doing it wrong.
Wow.
Well, no, I just got sick of listening to it. All I heard is hey, the only reason this guy's up front is because he's putting simple green on his tires.
So you went to Walmart and fixed it, huh?
Pretty much, yeah. I laid all 4 tires right out in front of everybody and did it in front of everybody in the entire pit area. So it's not like they didn't see it. It's just it didn't work for me. So it's like,
did they cut a sample off the tire that night or no?
I didn't run good enough. You're not going to get sampled if you're in the back of the pack. You know what I mean? It's just kind of
back to cars, though. I think that's why that guy is assuming that Lucas Oil was treating Bobby special, because obviously, he had the tire dope situation.
I don't know, man. That guy, I'd like to believe it was true, but man, this guy's won. It didn't matter where he went, he won. He just got done winning 2 in a row already this year.
Oh, I'm not saying he ain't good. I'm just talking about these series potentially trying to Outlaws. They got you for your tire, and I think cost him his championship. And based on some evidence that came out, Bobby Pearson, a lot of people that he presented, I believe, at the banquet this year, a full-blown booklet and everything on showing how they were innocent. I just think that this guy saying back to, guys letting other people slide for a car, that was Lucas Oil this whole entire year trying to be like, come to us next year. If Bobby Pierce
Yeah,
and Ricky
yeah.
Thornton Jr. at Lucas Oil next year,
Well, I think I think what happens with I don't know about high limiter the World of Outlaws. I think what would happen in our deal, just based off of some of the experiences that I've had in my lifetime, if they really want you to come run the Lucas Tour, they can find a sponsor somewhere, so or vice versa. They could probably track down an owner or a sponsor that's really happy that could push your idea in the direction they want. I think that's probably how some of it's gone over the years. I know they've helped us. Lucas has been very good at trying to help us market things to get sponsors, as well as was the Outlaws, and I think that in turn breeds your idea of whether you want to be there. I think if Lucas wanted Bobby Pierce bad enough, just like anything, they keep pumping the zeros in until he shows up. You know what I mean? With whatever side deals. Side deals have been around forever. They're always going to be around.
Yeah. Not just in money, women too. No, I'm just playing.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't think they're handing that out, but they could be.
They could. I mean,
if they're handing that out, I missed the train.
Joy Taylor, Skip Bayless. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not saying no to Joy Taylor, but regardless, I mean, what would happen if either one of those series were able to obtain Bobby Pierce and Ricky Thornton Jr.? How would the other one sell a ticket? I mean, honestly.
Well, I mean, some of it is obviously when you have both of them that have they've both built a pretty good following. So some of it'll survive. I mean, I believe, just look back. You look back at the history of both the tours running. There was a big section of time where the World of Outlaws had a very, very strong field with most of the guys that were technically the best known guys. They were winning most of the races, and Lucas, I think at the time, kept their head to the grindstone, and guys that probably could have been a dirty dozen, like Earl Pearson. He could have been a dirty dozen guy. He was good enough. He decided not to do it. So he was over here, and he was a name guy. So Lucas was built on his back and winning 4 championships or 5 or however many he won, and then Jimmy Owens going over there. As they built up and they got competitive, they Scott Bloomquist woke up one day and thought, I want to go over there, because he was one of the first to do it, to leave the Outlaws and go over there. And then Francis did it, and I forget who else. And then I went, and I think Lanigan went the next year. So as you looked at the Outlaws as a whole, they were kind of losing all the guys that have been the mainstays. And then Shane Clanton obviously stopped racing as much as he was, and Clint Smith slowed down. Chubb obviously came off tours, and Rick Eckert. Like, you can name all these guys. Well, then the Outlaws were in a little bit of a flux for a while. And right now, you can say that it's not as tough, but then you can look at young guys like Bronson and Brian Shirley, who's been around a while, but he's not like he's really old, and he's over there. And Nick Hoffman has replaced some of the guys. Yeah, Gustin. So I think at the end of the day, that's how you survive. I think we're healthy enough. You're right, if they get that over there, it would be tough. But like I'm telling you, if I decided, I think, to not run as much, I think I'd be better at the races that I really would like to focus on. But it's not only about, I like the challenge of being out there on the road and racing these guys and racing them for points on top of racing them for money. And so that sometimes I know holds you back. You look at JD, he'll tell you that he had the most fun the year he was a true outlaw and got to do what he wanted. He won $1 million in one race that year, and that's because he focused on all of that. He's back on a tour. That's not all his decision, probably. Obviously, if I'm just an outsider looking in, some of it's his owners, marketing, and what they want to do with the nutrient ag and everything they do. So I don't think either one of them is built to fail immediately, and that's why you could probably lose Bobby, and it wouldn't matter. Now, 2-3 years down the road, obviously these promoters probably would be like, hey, we're not doing it. We're not paying. But by then, maybe Nick Hoffman's got 3 championships and, 30 wins a year, and it's still the World of Outlaws, man. You know what I mean? And that still carries weight, just like I'm sure that, like the high limit guys, yeah, they're going to have to build their brand. And it isn't just having the 49 car there, obviously, him and Larson, some of these guys. it's going to take more than that, or
Right.
it'll fizzle out. You know what I mean? 'Cause
Well,
the
and
Outlaws
that
in
was
trouble.
kind of the accusal situation. It was involving a few of those guys who are their in particular draws that were getting these
Yeah, I
slides.
mean, it could be, man. I'd like to think it doesn't happen, but I'm also not dumb, and anything's possible.
If it's
But
about
you tell you,
cars and selling tickets, makes sense.
well, and here's the thing though too. It's easy to, like I told you, you gotta know the circumstances. Like if this happened on a night where they'd run till 3 a.m. because of 10 rain delays, and this guy's gonna crack up about I don't know, what was it? I heard it was like a 16th inch or an 8th inch on a wicker bill. I don't know, man. I'd have a hard time making these guys like. I'd be like, we'll get these guys another day. But also, you know, I know that's not right. But sometimes you gotta, you know, this stuff ain't all black and white, and it's not always how it all should be. I mean, you're in pressure situations, and you got to make some judgments, and you know, maybe they're wrong, maybe they're right. I don't know. I'm not on that side, and that's probably a good thing because, you know. I don't know how it would go if I was on the
You're
other
saying
side.
you used to get that body pass, and now, you know.
Well, I don't know if I got it. I took advantage of it, and they just either were, you know, not quick enough to catch me, or
You were
or
Tim
they were
McCreadie?
letting everybody do it, and I just got with the program. I'll tell you what usually happens with the good guys in racing is usually you don't bother talking to the tech guy about it. You just go do it. Like if I see a guy parked next to me that has 12-inch rear deck on, I might not worry about it. Like a 12-inch spoiler when you're only allowed 8-inch, I might not worry about it for a race or two. About race 3, I might grumble to my guys, and they'll probably say to me, "Look it, man, you either do something about it or quit bitching." So then I'll show up with a 15-inch spoiler the next night. I won't bother going to the tech guy because I just don't. That's not me. Like I'm not going to go in there and do all that. I'm just going to build something way bigger, and then either we're all going to get in trouble, or then I'm going to have an advantage for a while.
So
That's
is it like an unwritten code of conduct, competitors versus the tech shed?
No, I just think that when you're looking for all these advantages, you never go into it saying, oh, because you never know. Like when we skewed bodies, we didn't go into it saying this is guaranteed to be better. I mean, my body at Longhorn partly got skewed in 2017 based off of a picture that sat on Justin Labonte's desk of Scott Bloomquist's car that had been skewed too. And what we said was, well, heck, obviously they're not worried about all these measurements. So we just skewed the body that put us on the same platform as him. And then from there, we went way more. We ran way worse. And then we went less. And we kind of played around with it. And then next thing you know, yeah, people were complaining. But, I mean, I just did what I saw other guys were doing. And sometimes I didn't even open the rule book up to see if it was a part of it. Like, we're probably not as in tune to every single thing as we'd like to pretend we are when it comes to rules.
Right. I mean, I feel like we're, talking about this. It's almost like that casino, me, you, and Rumling. Remember, Boom was there, and that was on the heels of the whole Larson body moving thing, where the car moved as it was sitting there, and we were laughing about it because I went after him.
Yeah, and we told you what that was about. That was about back the way they did squatting the car, and it wasn't illegal. So you cut holes in your put grooves in the upper body of the right front shock. So when they went to tech it and they squished down on the left rear, the right front would pop up, and then basically you'd get another like half an inch rear deck. It wasn't wrote in the rules what you had to do.
So I was still right, but I was wrong.
Yeah, you were just a year or two behind when we were doing it, and then like the Kevin, that's the kicker of Kevin. He just never changed any of his stuff, so he still probably has shocks with it in there, and we have a rule now where you don't even do any of that anymore. So it's
right.
But I'm sure he still probably has some shocks with the grooves in them because he gets a kick out of stuff like that.
Oh, I loved it. I loved his reaction. I saw him in there. I was like, oh shit, we're gonna have problems because you say stuff like that in the sprint car world. It's all short man syndrome over there. They can't handle it. I mean,
I think sometimes you gotta, I think
it's a short man syndrome complex, Tim. They're all short. They've never been
gotta
taller.
I don't get over there that much to know, you know what I mean? It's when I see them guys, they're great to me because obviously like we have nothing to compete against. So it's easy for me to be, joke with them and like everybody talks. I know Donnie shots really well. I don't see him on his bad days because when he comes and sees me finally, he's calmed down and is more apt to joke around and laugh a little bit than maybe some of the people he deals with on the sprint side when
Right.
he's that intense. You know what I mean?
Well, you're Tim McCreadie. You're freaking legendary. I mean.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if I raced against him, he probably might not be as nice to me when I'm around him. But
this is true.
By the time he might run into me, he's already hit the pop off valve on whatever he needed. And I'm the same way. Like, I'm not always happy and go lucky about everything. I feel one thing I will say about driving with Mark and the guys, I hope I've learned to let some things go away quicker, because they are like next race up mentality, which, I was too, but it's always easy sometimes to dwell on the bad stuff that didn't work out on the car and maybe carry it. But with them, they're like, you know what, we'll get them tomorrow. And
right.
like, that's a very good attitude to have. And coming from that team where they're used to winning and then they're not winning, and I didn't see them throwing tools and carrying on. You only got to respect that they treated me with respect, and then now I can carry that on to Boom and this team, because it was a lot easier to get better when I wasn't carrying maybe some of that anger that I used to carry all the time.
Well, and I had Jeff Oker on the show the other day, and I was like, pit morale is almost everything. I feel like I could go to any racing event in the country, never know the series, don't know the drivers. I could walk up and down the pitting area and spend an hour or so just observing how people are acting or being in their pitting area, and you could pretty much tell where they're going to run. You come across those pitting areas where they're sad and everybody's got a fucking look on their face and they all look like they're, don't even want to be there. Well, that's guy's maybe going to make the A or run at the back of the, field, versus a pitting area that's not, or laughing and joyous or common or just courteously communicating to one another.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's easy. Listen, I've been on both sides of it. It's easy to do. I mean, come check me out day 3 at Golden Isle. If we're taking provisionals every night, I'm probably going to be the most frustrated guy there. But I've learned several years ago that you gotta learn how to go somewhere else if I have to get away, and then leave them poor guys, because they don't need it. Look at everybody. The beauty of every team in this pit area, we all want success, and nobody's against the guys that are driving for them or working for them. So sometimes you got to realize that it's not anybody's fault, and it's like when you're running good, you're gonna run good, but when that changes, you don't even know why sometimes, and then it's frustrating. And you just got to learn how to get through it.
Yeah, it's almost how you act in adversity, that defines how fast you're going to get back, or if you're going to be fast again.
That's why I have a lot of confidence with what we're doing, because it hasn't been easy last year, but I thought we were making a lot of gains with Mark's stuff. And like I told you, I know the stuff that is going to go under me is first-class equipment, and the Clemens engines are as good as anybody's. We just got a brand new one that we're going to put in my car that's a little bigger cubic inch that Overton and some of them guys have run down there that have always had success. Glenn's been a joy to work with, and I think so in that section of town, I feel really confident. I just know that we still didn't get as far as I want to do with Mark, and I'm sure Mark feels the same way. That also, it doesn't mean that it's guaranteed we're going to immediately win. It just means we got to keep staying the course, and I think we'll get it. I don't know. It's cautious optimism, I guess.
Well, I mean, if Mark thought he needed, Brandon, I think Brandon needed Mark too. I mean, neither one of if Bobby Pierce goes back to the Outlaws and Shepard was to stay over there, it's not like he was on Pierce's level. I mean, Pierce almost made up those points that were taken away. I mean, that he knows he would have lost again. You could duplicate your season, and you're destroyed by Bobby Pierce in the championship hunt. Somebody in the comments said Tim McCreadie is one of the best late model drivers ever, and in my opinion, he's better than Bobby and Ricky, because he came through the years when you had to drive the damn cars. Somebody said amen to that. Question, you did mention cubic inch. Sprint car racing, the motors are, I'm going to say, just about everything when you get to the national level. How much does I know we're getting late here. We're gonna start wrapping it up, but how much does big horsepower actually matter in super late model racing? Because I would assume with the suspension and everything, putting stuff to the ground with the big heavy car, a little bit more important than like a sprint car with a wing and it's just a a dyno session basically.
Yeah,
What
it's
how important is it?
well, I'll tell you what's changed, which is kind of crazy, is so before they came out with the droop roll, where you had the chain with a hard like puck like we have to run now, and the decks get checked in the air. You were squatting cars, you were getting more rear deck height, the tires were softer, and the motors were really like on kill, and we were really getting them to where you had to go if you went to Knoxville and showed up with a 426 or a 430. They call them the new style motors are called high ports or spread bores or whatever. You just showed up with like a standard bore motor, you were in trouble. So a lot of that has changed because of the tires got a little harder. We lost some compounds, and then they went to a block type tire, which is just not as good as a tire as far as just getting into the racetrack. The rear decks came down, and all that stuff adding together just ended up the motors almost ran too good. So we've had to kind of go through and tune them a little different, but still in hot laps and qualifying, it is hard to beat extra cubic inch. And a lot of nights, Bobby has a couple of motors. He's got a 460, I believe, a 468, I think it is, from Vic Hill, and he does have a 430. But sometimes when you just put a 468 in, it's 20 more cubic inches, man. It's hard to beat that in 2 laps of qualifying. So the trick is what do you do with it come feature, and that's the rub, So we have traded off probably maybe better handling cars in the race for qualifying early, because like there's nights you'll see the crate cars will go every bit as fast as us. They have no motor and more downforce.
Well, so, for instance, like in the 410 world, they'll put the biggest hitter they can in the world in there, and they'll start the night. They'll qualify. They'll hot lap with that, with the rocket nozzles on there, and then right after qualifying, the crews are changing the nozzles, changing the headers, basically the stacks. Yeah. They're taking away 50 or 60 horsepower for the race condition. Can you not? Is there a similar process with the big motor?
Yeah, we don't do so much header changing or moving the collectors around maybe as we should. We'll work carburetors, restrictor plates, dropping inserts in is obviously probably a little bit like the nozzles, because you drop an insert in, you're controlling how much air is going to get into the intake, and that'll smooth the curve out or flatten it out where you could. It's weird. It's not that you want to be flat foot in our division all the time. You want to have a car not move a lot. It's just like anything. If you can keep your car up on the platform and not, everything's turned into like a timing device more than it is wedge or this and that. So you go down in the backstretch and you lift, and if your car naturally can posture up quicker, you're just back to the gas faster. So then your corner speed comes up, and hence a faster lap. And that's kind of what our racing is the cars that seem to do that have a little bit of compliance. They move a little, but they come back up really fast. And like I said, then you can back your corner up and pick your speed up. And the motors are the same way. We tune them to help us do a lot of that. And maybe not as we're not taking headers off, but we'll maneuver the gear ratio and the carburetors, inserts, restrictors, things of that nature. Timing. I mean, we got a couple of boxes you can switch to the other box, which will knock 6-7 degrees of timing out of the motor, which will help it, and all that good stuff. So yeah, we're on tune with all that.
Well, I'm just trying to figure why wouldn't you want to just bring the biggest, baddest motor all the time and just detune where you needed?
Sometimes you get to a place like the weight of the engine.
I was about to say that the balance of the car is big.
The balance of the car, yeah. It's like when I changed from Chevys to Fords a few years ago, I think the motor was over 400 pounds, and the Chevy was like 370. It was like 40 pounds heavier. It was crazy. We went to Charlotte and timed right up front when you needed a good running motor and run second, and thought we had this thing handled, and then went to Screven, a little short, small, big quarter, small 3/8, and struggled with our spring curves and struggled with everything. And I think we could. I mean, by mid-year, I was back in Chevys because of the weight and because of the way the engine ran. So it's
So you're saying that plays a factor even in the cubic inch department?
Well, I'm telling you, that's where like some of the old school stuff comes around. You got to remember, Bobby Pierce come up in a crate. So anytime you can get his motor to maybe run more like a crate, he might have more comfortability. So maybe early it's fast, and then his dad, who's been doing this a long time, is very sharp at tuning. If you watch them guys in the pit area, they work on that part of the car a lot, the motor part, as far as tuning it. And that's like, I do it sometimes in a different direction. I like to work on gear ratio and things of that way, and some linkages on the way the throttle opens up. But it's and like with like Thornton, obviously Ricky's crew chief, which was Burroughs, had learned all that. Like, that was the good thing, that Ricky was surrounded with a guy that had a lot of experience driving and working on. I mean, people forget Burroughs won a Lucas Oil championship with Don O'Neill with the Clint Boyer stable. So it's not like so like you get them people around and then they suggest things, and yeah, I think that's partly why Pierce is good. It's right now a very good dynamic of a guy that built everything himself, which is his dad, and lived through some hard times and understands maybe what to do with the motor, and then a kid that understands how to drive and has a good idea of how he wants his tires psyched and things of that nature. You know, it's a successful program.
I was just curious, the motor situation there. Some people don't understand it, in sprint cars, it's a 410 sprint car. That's an outlaw, but it ain't just a certain cubic inch with y'all. There's multiple variations.
That we can do about anything. We could build a big block if you want, but they're way too heavy. The craziest thing, the hardest thing to do is the most versatile number we seem to be at right now is like a 440 or a 450 range. It's hard to beat it. Listen, I'm telling you, 90% of the time that little standard bore 430 is an amazing running engine. It's hard to start 12th and 15th and come up through anymore. So there's certain areas, though, if you take it to a quarter-mile track in the Midwest, and it's not, April where it's stuck like Chuck, it's basically July or August, that motor is going to be the right engine to have. And I think some teams, are good at doing that. Some of the teams that I've been with, we kind of didn't. We had streamline engines. We had 5 of them, but they were all the same. And I think just like anything, racing's changed where some teams have options, and to be able to know when to do it is you got to be good at your job, and that's another thing. But if we were only going to run one place and you told me where it was, I could get you the right engine that would be the most successful.
I was about to ask that, coming from the guy with the the box trailer and the dually. Eldora is one of those types of tracks. I feel like it doesn't race like a Knoxville. It widens out. It to me, sometimes it races fast, but it races slow when the money matters, I think. What is
it races like a short track.
Well, yeah. What is? Have you changed your motor going to the World 100, or do you have a certain cubic inch that you bring there no matter what, and you work from there?
Yeah, I mean, with me, we've been around that 438, 440 program. We had Eldora's a unique place. The baddest motor doesn't always go around there the fastest, which is kind of weird to say because it is tacky some nights.
What's the shape of the track?
It's the shape of the track. A good running engine is what matters there. And honestly, like Eldora, a lot of it, you don't have to focus on having by far the baddest engine in the place, because qualifying isn't as important as everybody thinks, because all it does is put you behind all night long. And if there was never an invert wheel for Saturday, then qualifying would matter, and being a high point guy would matter. But when they have a big invert wheel, most of the time, you're really better off being, I think it's like 16th to 21st in points. So
well, you get to the A main, you got 100 laps. You want something that works the whole 100 as well.
Yeah. And then, but earlier in the week, like when they run them prelim nights, if you're fast time, that gets you inverted to 4th in a heat. If you don't even get the second, you don't get your time back. So then you're starting 16th. And the way the points break down, because they value qualifying so much, that like when you run 7th and get paid $1,200 for a prelim night, you're still like 3rd in points. So it's like, it almost doesn't do you any good to be fast time. It's almost, you make more money and you're worse off in the points for the invert. And I think that's what, like Bobby and a lot of guys, if you just look back, very rarely, usually the guys that have been good, they hit the invert right, because they make their car fast, and it might not be fast in qualifying, if that makes any sense.
Right, it's race trim.
Because Eldora is different than every track. You can run 100 and get there.
Yeah, you gotta race at Eldora. You can't just hot lap at Eldora.
Yeah, there's Eldora, Florence. you got to race it. And even really Batesville when it's right. There's a few places, man, when they're right, it doesn't matter. You can still come from, and you're on hard tires too, and that helps. Being on a hard right rear and soft right front left rear really makes us race better. But it's hard to convince people to put us on that. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, that's true. Funny you mentioned those 3 tracks. Before we get you out here, just a little rekindling here. We lost Scott Bloomquist this year. Obviously, you suffered other losses. I didn't plan on bringing that up, but Scott Bloomquist in particular, how was that for somebody like you who competed with him for a long time? And heck, I would assume that when you first got on the scene, he knew who the hell Bob McCreadie was. You know, Scott was a very well-known dirt racing guy. He knew of other racing forms. I'm assuming you and his relationship was a little different than the typical late model guy.
Yeah, I mean, my dad obviously raced. They crossed paths a lot. Obviously, Speed Weeks, and then Hagerstown. A lot of early season races, modifieds were late models, and so I didn't know Scott obviously, or even kind of hang around with him back then. But I also, you know, it was nothing. It's just like anything when you race as long as like my dad has, and as successful as he was, you'd be amazed at some of the people that come walking over to say hello. But yeah, Scott and him coexisted a little bit. And when I first started racing, Scott was different. Like, we didn't always have the best relationship. There's things that he did that rubbed me the wrong way, and he, you know, a couple of his guys have told me since that it was more of a sign of that he admired me, or he thought I was a threat, because I just thought that, man, he was not always like, I just thought we could have had a better relationship. I respected him, but I also didn't always get along with him. We didn't always race really good together. And he just sometimes was smart to me about things. And so it drove me to want to beat him. You know what I mean? So, but I did talk with Bruce Nutting, who was, you know, his main chassis builder for forever. And he told me after at Eldora when they did the Celebration of Life that a lot of that was because he saw me as one of the guys that was a threat. And so I kind of took it as a compliment. I wish maybe I could have, you know, done some things different. Not that like I said, we could coexist and hang out, but we didn't really back and forth with each other with setups. So it would have been interesting to see, because unfortunately right before the end, he was at Cedar Lake and parked like, I think 1 or 2 down, and he was coming into Mark's trailer a lot and talking to him about spindles and A-frame stuff, and I was a part of them conversations, and those were some neat conversations because he was as sharp as they came, and obviously arguably the best guy to do it in our division. It's a shame. It's a shame what happened all the way around. God forbid if it was because he was having a tough time. Hopefully, if any people are in that situation, somebody reaches out, man, because you don't ever, you never know what people are going through. So it don't hurt to say hello once in a while.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure, you know, being a competitor, Scott Bloomquist probably is what, you know, you kind of came in there and was doing some things when it was his time, maybe in his mind. You know, Scott was very personally boisterous, you know, so.
Yeah, and I was rough. I was rough around the edges. I mean, people, it's funny because you evolve as a driver, and things I see guys do, and they tell you, man, you know, you just don't do that. Some of it is age, some of it is knowledge. I did it. I mean, unfortunately, like, I'm kind of, my career, I've had a very good career, but also those things you didn't go anywhere. It's like driving, like some of the guys have driven to get some things done and ripping decks out of cars didn't get you anywhere in the early, in the mid, and even the late 2000s, because, or not the late 2000s, but the mid 2000s, because it's just the cars didn't react good that way. It actually made them worse. And so now it's a bit of a catch-22. You want to do it, but I watch. I mean, I pay attention. If anybody thinks this Bobby Pierce drives like his hair's on fire every night, then they're not watching the race. I mean, he has evolved as a driver and has learned when to do things and when not to do things. And he's what I would say is versatile. I mean, being able to run the bottom or the top is the whole key in this game. I mean,
right.
So it's you know,
And they're
it's
not
the way
watching
it is.
Davenport float the middle most of the time. He's winning too.
No,
So.
it's one of them things. Well, you know, look at people want to see. I've learned, and I'm the same way. People want to see what they want to see. So I want to tell everybody that Bobby Pierce doesn't drive out of control, and the next guy wants to say that he does, and we both are going to see it our way.
Right. Well, I mean, we even had a caller call in and think that Bloomquist faked his death and is on some island with the Illuminati and Prince and Elvis Presley.
You never.
With him, it's halfway believable.
You know,
that video went viral. You know, that's halfway believable.
You never know, man. He's
no skid marks. No skid marks on the ground. Just a little fire. I mean,
he was an enigma and all kinds of things, man. Like, there's one thing he definitely, it was no act. All that stuff that people used to see, and he would say, I mean, man,
camera Bloomquist and off camera Bloomquist was the same, pretty much.
I still remember like it was yesterday, and he'd been struggling in Florida, and he won at Volusia and got out of the car and told everybody in the place on the microphone that you know, he just needed to clear his mind, and he was driving down the highway and saw a skydiving thing, and he just whipped in and skydived, and now he knows exactly what he needs to do. And I thought, that's crazy. I thought, this guy, I'm like, this guy literally says this, but like he truly believed it, and he actually lived it. So like me, it would kind of drive me crazy. I'm like, come on, man. But
well, he doesn't get on the mic and try to cuss like the new kids do. You know, it's so weird. The new guys,
they don't know no better.
It's like they do it on purpose, though, Tim. It's like they're trying to say an F-bomb or this bomb or that to sell a T-shirt. It's weird. You see them forcing it. It's not natural.
That'll well, exactly. You know, you can't change who you are.
They're acting.
I think what true professional is somebody that can drop all the F-bombs in a setting that's, you know, your guys, you're trying to get a point across and be passionate about what you're doing. And then when they stick that mic in front of your face, you can turn the switch the other way and show all kinds of respect and straightforwardness. Because the reason they're able to do it right now is because the owners haven't had enough of it yet. Like, our race trends by what the owners want. Right now, some of the owners, I think, dig it. And until they wake up and, like, if they say, hey, how come you haven't got X sponsorship? And you can look them right in the eye and say, well, you know, your way your driver acts, why would I come aboard with a, you know, chain store of wheels or whatever, AutoZone, or name your store, you know, Budweiser, because we can't have that. And then the owners will fix it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's just because
I'm not against, you know, losing a cool or getting passionate and saying, you know, F that guy for doing what he did. But some of these guys, they don't do that. They get on there and they act. You know, they look for a way to say those things.
It's the way it is. Everyone thinks you need to make a shock deal.
Yeah, that's what it is. You can't park there.
You know, and
they're trying to get their moment.
Most of them get over it. I mean, you look at like a Devin Moran, he carries himself very well.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a little rough around the edges when he started. Jonathan Davenport, he carries himself. Most of the guys that are really good in our sport are pretty good at carrying themselves. You know what I mean? And the other ones, they just got a little bit to learn. I mean, what do you look at? I was probably as bad as everybody when I was younger.
I'll tell you what, the closest thing we got to a Bobby or a Bloomquist nowadays is Bobby Pierce. They either love or hate that guy. You don't find somebody who doesn't like Bobby Pierce that doesn't hate him.
Yeah.
They hate him.
Yeah, well, he
handles it well though. I mean,
they play it up. Scott played it up. Scott used to play it up a lot, and Bobby plays it up too. I come from a different world. You know, my dad was liked by a lot of people, so a lot of people liked me. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't like me. I don't see them. I mean, but I also haven't won 38 races in a year, and who knows, they might get sick of hearing my shtick every night if I've won 38 races. So some of it's based off of winning a lot, you know. So it's I know that my dad somehow was able to win. I mean, I think he averaged like 26 wins a year and had some 40-plus years and a 49-win year out of like 80 races and no booze. I don't even know how that's possible, but I also know he was my hero, and think I think he was just that good to people that they didn't never want him to see him do bad.
Well, I think that you
most of us get booed.
You want some standards. You probably care about the sport. You know what the sport represents you. You probably understand that that guy acting like an idiot on the mic technically represents your product,
Yeah.
And you try to lead by example. One of your most famous videos that's ever went viral is you in Victory Lane telling that guy to shut his mouth because he's, cussing and there's little girls over here or kids. A classy way to act. I do think the late model world is behind a little bit the other segments, the sprint car world and the big block world too. You could throw them in there as far as just a little class to the actions. Maybe Scott's responsible for that. I don't know, but
well, we're hitting it big right now, and I think maybe some of it is that we just don't know how to handle some of it. And you got to also I was talking with Robbie Allen, Hoghead crew chief at Satterley's the other day, and you got to understand, unfortunately, we have some things that are like races, and then there's events like the Dome. I went and did it. I had a good time. I ended up crashed out, but I had a good weekend and had no problem doing it. That is a very good event, and they are pushing it to be an event, and the racing is part of it, but they want the action like they get on the microphone there and the things like that. That is tough to do, and you can't do that at Eldora. It doesn't work. Eldora is a marquee race and I'm not saying the Dome isn't. The Dome has ballooned, and it's a big deal, but it's not made.
It's a big deal for
its
Jerry Springer attitude.
Well, and listen, there's a place for it. I'm not, you don't say that as a slight. That's what it's marketed to be. It's kind of like WWE versus, something else.
It's monster trucks.
And it has a place. It has a place. There's nothing wrong with it. And I don't not go there because I don't want to partake in it. I did. I had a blast doing it, and it might go back. I just haven't really. A lot of times that's when I finally get my downtime.
Well, I think that late model racing has a little bit of a problem in allowing that to be a part of their product. I don't think, Chili Bowl will be next week. There ain't, outside the top of the ramp and a couple of drivers fighting over a wreck on the track, they're not looking to find somebody to, talk smack on a camera or say that they destroyed the race car and it's funny. To try to get a viral clip. The Chili Bowl is about a race. That's the big difference between the Chili Bowl and the Dome is the race at the Chili Bowl is the prestige as well.
The Dome has really good races, though.
It did this year. It had really good, yes.
Yeah, I think people just sometimes get caught up in the moment, and they've let
what
it
it's
go.
known for.
Yeah, they've let it go a little further than maybe it should, and you'll listen. You see, even like Tyler Carpenter, he's a good kid. He's not who he was 3 years ago. He's understanding how it goes, and for him to take the next step, he's just got to be. He doesn't have to prove anything. He's a good driver and wins a lot of races. So the next step is he calms down and gets some more funding, and then he takes a little bit different step to maybe get out on the road with us a little more, other than what he did at the Dome.
Well,
but
he
got him in the door, and
but he got famous for winning that Dome too. It wasn't just antics on a microphone.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I think some of it is. You're right. We could probably be definitely if the next step for us is besides trying to get more purse money is that we got to try to bring. We're at the point where we got to have numbers that could bring in some sponsors that are maybe not on the same level as a truck team, but pretty damn close. So that's talking some good money.
Well, we're going to have
facilities. We're going to have to clean up. Yeah,
you need facilities.
We have to clean it up. Yeah. We need to get to these people with the numbers. That's the biggest, probably for me personally, is like I said. I talk about Glenn Donnelly a lot because I grew up in a world where he was doing live TV in the 80s and then
Empire.
90s on Sports Channel. Yes, on Empire, and then he started Dirt Vision, which has turned into basically what the internet is doing right now with all this stuff streaming. We were streaming stuff through Dirt Vision in the mid 90s, and of course the internet wasn't very big back then. So it's but I used to get the numbers, so I could take them to X sponsor and say, okay, here's what we're doing, here's what we're reaching, and it is a little tough right now to get some of these numbers to be able to even help the teams market themselves. And that goes back to the deal. Everybody's so scared to share what they're doing because they're all going to be pointing at how much more money we deserve. But somehow we got to learn to get to work together so we could try to attract some sponsors that could help the teams be successful with major branding. I mean, because it should be there, man. Like, we have enough, I think, ability to do it with some good facility. Maybe every facility's not right, but there's a lot of good ones. But the cars are big enough to be marketed the right way and put some nice billboards out there for people to see. We got to get to these people, but you got to get to these people with numbers. You can't walk into these meetings with, what is it, dreams and hopes. You got to show these guys concrete evidence that you're doing numbers like a truck team, because we definitely have more publicity than a truck team.
Yeah, and all you can show them right now is your social numbers, and that's it,
Exactly.
And that's stupid.
That's the one. Yes, and that's, if we could get all this stuff together, I'm sure that everybody would benefit, because there's going to be people that want to sponsor the series instead of, the team, right? And then you can, I don't know.
Streaming's a huge deal because, you can have way more streamers than you can people at the track, and,
you can tell it's big if the NFL starts doing it.
Well, Tim McCreadie, who's a Final Four driver, walks into Nabisco or whatever, and all he can say is, well, here's the average crowd attendance, and here's how many Facebook and social followers I have. That you can't say, and here's how many people watch us race, because of the hiding of the numbers.
That's the big rub.
That's
the big rub, because there was a time when we were doing the MAV TV live shows, sitting there with one channel on Spectrum in New York. I can't speak for Spectrum all over the country, but Spectrum in New York was 402. Fox FS1 was 400. And trucks and Bush teams were on those channels and not even on the main channels. So how far off could we have been when it came to viewership if they're on an upper tier channel that you got to pay for at that point?
Well, see, the closest thing we got I don't know if you saw that story that came out here recently with Kyle Larson saying that one day the High Limit Series and World of Outlaws could merge. But there was numbers in there where Flo's, what's his name, that Floriani or whatever, said that they averaged 100,000 unique streamers an event with High Limit, and 2.5 million viewers over the course of the season. So, at least we got, this is the first thing we've ever seen, though,
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, that's how you, like, it's this. Sometimes soon. Look, I might be long gone before.
I'm just saying, you need these numbers more than need these numbers more than a press release, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, you're damn right. We need so we can take it somewhere. Like I tell, Glenn Donnelly would do this stuff for you, and maybe to his detriment, but he, I think, also was secure with himself that he was the only game in town, and he made all this happen. And then if you brought a major sponsor, and he maybe ended up getting that as a partnership, or maybe he helped bring it to you. I know a lot of them sponsors that went through them big block teams that were national branding sponsors was a partnership between all of them. And like, you can ask Billy Decker or Brett Hearn and all these guys how it worked out for them, because a lot of them had successful deals based off of
Pillsbury in there, Budweiser.
Yeah, Pillsbury. My dad had Kenny Drugs. That's 70s chain store in New York and Pennsylvania. It was a lot of, like I said, based off of knowing what these numbers were and how many people you could reach.
Right. And
listen, then that's 1995, man.
It's crazy. Well, it does seem like the big blocks, no matter how segmented they are, that y'all's area up there is just a little more progressed in some departments than the rest of the country. In some ways,
I think they do a great job. Who knows now? It's probably not as on the forefront, because obviously, not Boundless, but Dirt Motorsports or the Outlaws, Carter, and all them they have their other focus.
Apparently, from my understanding, Albany, I don't know, there's some track up there in Albany, is the #1 viewed race on a weekly basis.
Albany, Saratoga. Yeah,
all of it. That's out of all of it, out of Lucas Oil, out of everything.
It don't surprise me. They also get a ton of people to show up. Like, that track is like an awesome track to race at. Always has a full grandstands, has great talent in the building, and none of that surprises me.
But #1.
But also they,
weekly race #1. It blows my mind.
It's a big area. Albany, Saratoga is a pretty big area, and Friday nights. I don't know. I mean, they're not going to lie to you, I wouldn't think.
No.
They probably don't want it to be Albany, Saratoga. They probably want it to be, whatever track they Volusia.
World of Outlaws.
Dirt.
I'm comparing to
Yeah.
series. I'm saying
Yeah.
that Albany track has more streamers than any series or
Well, you'd
anything.
never
we know.
know
I was
how-
told this last year. It could have changed, but
Well, here's the thing. Then you need to talk to, so Lyle DeVore obviously is the promoter there, and he must be doing more than just turning the thing on, right? So
right.
some of that is the promotion team that's involved, and that guy obviously is a guy that you want to have figure out how to do it then. Like,
Okay.
That's the whole thing. It's no different than anything that's successful, right? Lean on them people and ask their opinion, and then you can help everybody.
Well, we'll end it at Flo needs to give Tim McCreadie numbers. Or he's leaving to the World of Outlaws and Dirt Vision will be giving him numbers. That's going to be the new player
Whoever
trip.
gives me the numbers.
Yeah, that's who's getting you.
Whoever gives. Hey, listen, just make them up, because then I'm just going to give you they're going to be calling you after. I don't care if they're made up. Just give me something.
Right. Yeah, make them up. I mean, 100,000 unique, apparently, according to the story over here, for a high limit.
Well,
that's 14.9 million.
Yeah.
In
I mean,
revenue.
that's a good way to be able to knock on a door of, when you're going through the Midwest, whatever, just find 50 to 100 chain stores, Casey's for one, right? That'd be a good thing to take to Casey's and see what they think.
Yeah, for these 7 or 8 races I'm in y'all's region, would you like me to run a Casey's car?
Well, or would you like to be, like, if you're high limit, would you like to be, I mean, all them dirt races, it was the Kenny Drugs 50 at Wheatsport, or the Thunder on the Mohawk by Wheels or whoever. Like, that's what the job of the streamers, the promoters, and all those guys above us isn't just it's we got to help that promoter. Like I said, you said it the best. We got to help the two people the most vested is the promoter and the owners. We got to try to help them as best as possible.
Right. Well, and I worry that sometimes these streaming companies want to only show those numbers to potential sponsors that could go to them instead of y'all.
Yeah, that's unfortunately that's life. It's kind of that's up to me to show them that I'm a better product and just a nice brush over the whole thing, right?
Well, just like you said with their sport, it goes where the owners take it. As long as the owners say it's okay.
Yeah. So I mean, like I said, it's up to them, and whatever they steer us where they want us to go. They let us do everything, do a lot that we love to do, and they also let us, take these. Who knows the budgets, like, and then tinker with these things that are beautiful cars and all kinds of stuff like that. So it's very positive on my end, man. I'm just excited to get it going. Like, honestly, dude, I know we've been on for a while, and it's only because I'm ready to rock and ready to. Hopefully, we can get a bunch of people to this to watch this thing unveil, and hopefully, people like the design and they're excited like I am, and we'll hit it hard.
Well, I'm just keeping you up because, it's like fighters when they're training. They train at the time they're going to fight, so you need to be ready for these late nights, at the track.
Yeah, I hear you. I got to get up. We got the kids in the school in the morning, and then we got to get to this water park. We got all kinds of stuff. Believe me, we got a lot happening.
Okay. Well, thanks for calling in as usual. I guess, the owner's directing you to Golden Isle now. So that's where you got to go.
Yeah, it's about that time. We'll do it again. And like I told you, anytime, I don't always have good views, but I enjoy talking to you.
Well, I mean, it's been steady. It's been steady here. I mean, if Boom Briggs wants to bring me on the road, we can talk about it. No, I'm just playing.
Yeah. Well, you never know.
We'll see.
You never know. I know you've asked to go with us, and we were scared to have you around for a while because you talk about being a young hothead. You're the same way. So even you've mellowed out a little bit.
No, it's situational. It depends.
All right.
If you're surrounded by friends versus surrounded by lions, you're acting different,
Yeah, that's true. You got that right.
Okay. Well, thanks for calling in. It's Tim McCreadie, your new Facebook page, right? It's new. It doesn't have the followers that it because you had always operated under Paler Motorsports, correct?
Yes, we had a Facebook years ago that was like T-Mac fan page that was really big, and we kind of eased him. He kind of shut it down, and that was a mistake. But we're not making that again. No, this one hopefully will blow up and get bigger, and people can tune into that. And I'll get on X a little bit, push people there, and try to give people more of an idea of what we do and what I'm doing. I know people like it. I just I've always been fairly private about things, and it's not that I'm trying to, chase glory. I've already had enough of that. I just figure it'd be pretty cool to, as I change my career, change the team, maybe change up how we're doing some things, and hopefully the fans like it.
All right. Well, do you know what time you are going to do this Friday?
It's I think it's listed for 10 on Friday, 10 in the morning, really early. I haven't, so a bunch of the sponsors got together. Dave Warren is one of our major sponsors. He's putting it on. He's kind of running it. I've lent some of the stuff to kind of be a part of this, and I don't know if I'm supposed to zoom in or what I'm supposed to do on this thing or what we're exactly doing. I'm going to have him, hopefully tomorrow, I'll have a little more information. I know it's kind of quick, but you know how it is. This is so new to all of us that we're trying to do it without stepping on it, and hopefully it'll be something cool that people like, and it'll lead into doing more content.
Well, I guess all you could do is do what I'm doing, go and like the page, and I'm assuming they'll get a notification when y'all go live.
Yes, that's what and try to follow it. I think and listen, you know this better than me, man. I didn't even have Facebook until this went on. So I tried to stay away from it because I just thought I'd run better by not letting that in. And now I got people that want to be a part of it, and I'll be a part of it too. I might not be every single minute on it, but it'll, I think if you follow it or whatever, it obviously helps forever notification and things like that. Like I said, I feel like I'm an 80-year-old man dealing with this stuff, but that's okay. I'll get it really quick. If I'm interested in it, I'll really be on it, and we'll do some stuff that maybe you haven't seen out of me personally or my race team or wife, kids, and everybody else, and see how people like it. And they can see how we live a little bit. Yeah, not too much, but just a little bit.
Wear a GoPro skiing or something. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe I'll if I had a better physique, I'd wear one to this water park, but I don't think anybody cares to see that. So we'll wait till another day.
You'd be surprised. I've heard a lot of women find you attractive, Tim.
Oh, there you go.
I don't know what it is.
Better shave tomorrow then, and I better clean up a little bit then.
All righty. Well, thanks for calling in, man.
Right, man.
Appreciate it a lot.
Anytime. Thank you. See it.
There you had it, ladies and gentlemen. Tim McCreadie on to the show. Really good one. Went longer than I thought. About to hit the 3-hour mark. Wow. Y'all are still here. How are y'all still here? 3-hour mark. Wow. What's the chat saying? I tried to keep an eye on it. Of course, we did have our one super chatter there earlier in the night. Oh, can we scroll up and see it? There it is. Brendan Lockwich. Thanks for the super chat there to ask Tim McCreadie that question. It was interesting there. World of Outlaws or Lucas, and to learn that basically, yeah, there's people signed, there's people committed to a series and all that, but as far as drivers actually 100% committed to one series or the other, first of all, we learned that you can sign up for both series. You can go down to Florida and be technically set up to run either Lucas Oil or the World of Outlaws and get tow and agreement perks while you're down there. And then after Florida's over, pick one. So that's pretty astounding, actually. I didn't know that. I don't know how many people do know that. I know there is a deposit system that he talked about with the World of Outlaws, and that was to try to protect people from jumping from one series to the other. But it seems like there's an agreement between the two national series that Florida is somewhat of a drafting process, in that whole situation. When they go down there for Florida, it's just like they're kind of agreeing, yeah, we got this guy, y'all got that guy, but technically we both understand that on the hills of Florida, we'll know who's going where. And the deposit system still protects guys who go a month in or 2 months in and switch. So that actually, still matters. But it sounds like when it comes to Florida in particular, until we technically, us as people watching the sport, viewing the sport, wanting to know more about the sport, we're not going to know which late model drivers are where until after Florida, as things sit currently in the sport. But anyways, ladies, let's see. T-Mac is a legend and a badass. Thank you, Chaz. Yeah, I love having T-Mac on. High Limit is turning into NASCAR. Oh, God. Somebody's mentioning High Limit. I said High Limit too many times tonight. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. We are not going to tech Tim McCreadie's body on the race car or at the water park tomorrow. Unfortunately, we're not getting that. But thanks for tuning in. Be sure to like the video. If you're not subscribed, click the subscribe button right now. Think about joining the membership. We saw the names run across the bottom down here, as well as Deathridge and some of the other supporters. Deathridge, of course, the same optics that I wear here when I go up and down the road. I should have asked Tim McCreadie, but Jonathan Davenport wears, Donnie Schatz wears. The famous Deathridge Racing Opticians. You can contact them for your lenses and frames today. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. It was fun to have Tim McCreadie on. Share the video around, just as important as supporting. And we will catch you next time. Thanks for tuning in.
Ready to rip, ready to reach. Place my bets, hey, you never know when playing on hopes what you can achieve. Making the goal, peace with the soul, don't matter the bottle with what you believe. Cause if I'm taking it all in the calling, it's harder with nothing that's harder than free. Not giving up, no, don't trip, gotta go. Take a slip, make a pass in the low. Put it down the gas for a show. Slide a pass on the grass for the oh. Got first, never last for the oh no. To the pass of the glass of the photo. Cause I'm gonna pass all you cowards with ease. And when them speeding demons come, we don't feast with the beast and the evil hunting lust. Burn your cheeks when I speak with my real passion, love. Turning all your tricks against you cause you want and only master here.